Wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 25th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Olivia Utley.
Now, breaking this hour, Donald Trump is en route to Scotland, where the US president will stay for a 5-day visit, both to see his golf courses and to refine the recent trade deal secured and signed with Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, will it be Trumpapalooza or Trumpageddon? Well, the people of Scotland are divided, but what's certain is Donald Trump will be spending 5 days here looking across his golf course in Ayrshire and in Aberdeen.
And stop dissing that man, Donald Trump. He matters to UK jobs. We're told that by Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary.
Hotel hostility. The Essex Police Commissioner demands migrants are removed from Epping as the local council vote to close the Bell Hotel. As the standoff deepens, how will the government respond?
Elsewhere, the doctor will not see you now. Yes, make sure you don't get ill this weekend, as 5 days of junior or resident doctor strikes are now underway.
And a shock poll reveals half of Brits do not believe that Islam is compatible with British values, while 4 in 10 think Muslim immigrants have a negative impact on the UK.
A record number of farms were forced to close for good this year after Rachel Reeves's tax raid is accused of making the future of thousands of rural businesses simply unviable.
And pornographic websites will be forced to deploy age verification checks, including credit card details or webcam face scans from today. But will this put law-abiding adults at risk?
And as the summer holidays begin, many families are preparing to head away on holiday, but the Travel Association predicts this weekend is set to be one of the busiest this year. Will you brave the traffic? Now, Donald Trump will be setting off from the South Lawn of the White House, getting into Marine One, taking him off to Air Force One and flying across the Atlantic. Sometimes these can be quite exciting little moments.
Well, yeah, Donald Trump acts as though this is a nice private little visit. He just wants to sort of put his feet up, but I have a feeling he's going to be getting the attention of news presenters around the UK. It'll be really interesting to see how Keir Starmer deals with this as well, because it could potentially be very, very awkward for him. Some people are suggesting that actually he shouldn't be meeting Trump at all. He should be waiting for the full state visit in 4 weeks' time.
Well, I'm very excited to see what glimpse we get of the president over the course of the coming minutes, maybe over the next hour or so. Should we remind ourselves what happened last time Donald Trump set off for a European excursion?
That have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Oh, maybe we won't get just as a
We'll
foul
bring
mouth
you the pictures and the video as soon as we get it. I'm sure we're all quite excited for that.
Absolutely, but so much more to come on the show. And do remember, through it all, you can get involved. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in all of these discussions. And we're getting to some of your thoughts later on in the programme too. All of that to come after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 3 minutes past 12. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Resident doctors have begun their 5-day strike over pay. That's despite Sir Keir Starmer's last-ditch appeal, saying that the walkout will put patients and the NHS at risk. Thousands of doctors have walked out today, but Health Secretary Wes Streeting said the impact on those requiring treatment will be kept to a minimum. He said he deeply regrets the position we find ourselves in. Patients are being encouraged to keep coming forward for NHS treatment, as up to 50,000 resident doctors will join the walkout in England and Wales. The Health Secretary said today that the British Medical Association has acted recklessly.
You're doing everything we can to minimise the risk to patients and to minimise the disruption, but I want to be honest with people. What we can't do is eliminate disruption or risk to patients. We know that there have been operations, appointments and procedures already cancelled, and we know that there will be real challenges over the next 5 days. And that is why the Prime Minister and I are so angry on behalf of patients and other NHS staff who are working hard to keep the show on the road, that the BMA have taken what is reckless and unnecessary action, forgetting that they've had a 28.9% pay increase from this government, and this government was also willing to go further on improving their working conditions.
Well, Shadow Business and Trade Minister Dame Harriet Baldwin said doctors need to get back around the negotiating table.
Doctors are being very unreasonable here, and I think that it is wrong for them to go on strike. The Health Secretary, who I think is saying all the right things, is offering 5.4% to striking doctors. So it would be good to see them back around the negotiating table on some of the other sort of non-salary related issues. They got a big pay rise last year. 5.4% is probably more than most of your viewers are getting this year.
Elsewhere, 19-year-old Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife last summer, sparking a huge search, died by accident after falling from a height, a coroner has ruled. The coroner, Dr. James Aidley, said Mr. Slater fell between 20 and 25 metres when trying to descend a ravine. This resulted in a skull trauma from which he would have, quote, died instantly. There was no third party involved, Dr. Aidley said. Earlier, Mr. Slater's mother, Debbie Duncan, told the inquest that her son had a wonderful life and was a joy to be around. US President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Scotland later today to open a new golf course and a memorial to his late mother. First Minister John Swinney said Scotland will have a platform to make its voice heard during the visit, adding that the country has an opportunity to respectfully demonstrate the principles of freedom and justice for all, as well as promote Scotland's economic investment potential. It's understood the President will meet with Sir Keir Starmer during the trip. While Sir Keir Starmer is also facing pressure to immediately recognise Palestine as a state amid growing calls from MPs and a commitment from France. The Prime Minister will hold emergency talks on Gaza with France and Germany today, saying the suffering and starvation unfolding there is unspeakable and indefensible. He also said statehood was the inalienable right of the Palestinian people, but maintained that a ceasefire should come first. French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed last night that France will recognise Palestinian statehood, making his country the first G7 nation to do so. He said he'd formalise the move at the UN General Assembly in September. A council has unanimously voted to urge the government to close a hotel housing asylum seekers following a series of protests around the site in Essex. Multiple demonstrations have been held outside the Bell Hotel in Epping since the middle of July after an asylum seeker was charged with alleged sexual assault. He denies those allegations and will stand trial in August. Dozens of protesters gathered at the site again last night, and police have made 18 arrests and charged 7 people in connection with the demonstrations. The Essex Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner has also reportedly urged the Home Secretary to review the use of the hotel for housing asylum seekers. And Jeremy Corbyn has attended a mega picket in support of the Birmingham bin strikes after launching his new political party yesterday. Full-scale industrial action from bin workers in Birmingham began in March. Mr Corbyn told Birmingham City Council to get a deal now, settle this dispute now, and pledge yourself to genuine equal pay. The MP for Islington North, alongside the MP for Coventry South, Zara Sultana, said their new party will take on the rich and the powerful. He said the new venture would be a campaign for a mass redistribution of wealth and power. Those are your latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3462 and €1.1470. The price of gold is £2,485.90 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,110 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 9 minutes past 12, and US President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Scotland for a 5-day visit, his first to the UK since his re-election.
Well, the President is expected to visit his golf resorts at Turnberry and catch up with the Prime Minister too. But of course, we're expecting some protests.
And GB News reporter Tony Maguire joins us now. Now, Tony, would it be fair to say that Donald Trump might love Scotland, but Scotland doesn't love Donald Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if we cast our mind back to the end of last year and it was declared that Scotland was the biggest fans of Donald Trump in Western Europe, that was just following his election win at the end of last year, but that biggest fans in Europe really equated to about 17% at that time who were favourable or were favourable towards the President-elect. Now, it's well said that there's a line to be drawn here because a lot of people do appreciate that Donald Trump has invested immensely in both Ayrshire and the northeast of Scotland around his golf resorts. But, you know, we saw in 2018 in his last presidential visit, and indeed the last time he was here in Scotland in 2023, there was sizable protests pretty much following him around the country, and very much people here either disagree with his politics, they disagree with, you know, things he's said or done in the past, and very much you see this as an opportunity to have Scotland's voice heard. Now, First Minister John Swinney, he's come under a little bit of fire because, you know, in a statement that he issued last night, he'd basically kind of welcomed, you know, and reaffirmed the country's ability to protest and that should be protected. And, you know, it's been suggested that he's almost issued that as a bit of a come-on to kind of ignite protests. But nevertheless, people here, I think, especially in, I mean, the town of Maiden's a lovely little kind of seaside town. This is just at the northern border of the Turnberry resort, and you know, people here again, it's that, you know, they're not a big fan of the man, but there's huge respect for the office of the President of the United States, in addition to the money that he has put into this local economy. Now, people in Glasgow maybe not feeling quite so much, and of course coordinated protests are expected right across the country over the next couple of days. Aberdeen and Edinburgh, two organised by the Stop Trump coalition, but police are now expecting more protesters, I guess, to migrate here. Both his golf resorts pretty remote, so don't expect massive numbers, but you know, as we've seen in his previous visits, there don't need to be a lot of protesters to create a huge noise.
Well, Tony Maguire, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that live from Turnberry. Should we get some political reaction now? Christopher Hope, our political editor, joins us in the studio. This is ostensibly a bit of a jolly for the President of the United States. Most of the days will be on his golf course. He enjoys it very much. But there's some politics here too.
Yes, a private visit, 5 days. Wheels down in the UK at 7 p.m. tonight. He's over the weekend in Turnberry. Monday, the politics starts. There's going to be a bilateral meeting with Donald Trump and Sir Keir Starmer. Number 10 have been quite I would say, cagey about how to respond to this, because it really is a private visit to his golf courses. And yet politics is always there, and it's right, I think, that Sir Keir Starmer, along with the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney, meet with Donald Trump in the UK. Of course, next month is the big one, that's the state visit. So this is almost a kind of an amuse-bouche before the big action next month. But it could be quite interesting. There's always, they've told us overnight in America they want to look at the pharmaceuticals, or rather expand the trade deal they agreed in the Rocky Mountains with the UK and the US. That could mean pharmaceutical access. It could mean cutting steel and aluminium tariffs. We don't know what it is yet. There'll be talks about defence, the AUKUS submarine deal, and also how to shore up support for Ukraine.
It could be quite awkward for Keir Starmer in a number of ways. I mean, visually, it could be a bit tricky, him being on a golf course, sort of hanging around with Trump, perhaps looking a little desperate when he doesn't seem himself to have any interest in golf. And in a more substantive way, you know, there is a chance that the president could bring up migration, which we know is a very, very sticky subject for Keir Starmer at the moment. He once said that areas of London were no-go areas. If he raises something like that again, could it pour fuel on the fire, for example, of the Epping protests?
Yes, a very good point. I mean, he can say anything in those bilaterals. We'll be there for GB News in the room on Monday lunchtime or so with the Prime Minister and the US President.
It's always Good Afternoon Britain, isn't it?
As you say,
all the news, Trump news.
All the news for your show, Tom and Olivia. Yeah, anything can happen, and we'll be asking the questions that our viewers care about, of course. Yeah, but it's a huge weekend, I think, and how it plays out is fascinating. You could say anything. That's what we're waiting for.
Now, you've been speaking to the Business Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, and the Labour Party has had a very difficult time of balancing what a lot of these people previously said about the President of the United States and how they have to tiptoe around him now. Do you think they're getting the balance right?
That's right. You've got to, I think what Tony Maguire said there was fascinating, that, yes, people have concerns about what he said in the past about women and so many different groups of people, Donald Trump as a person, but you've got to respect the office of the President of the United States. I think that is what I think the government understands. And I spoke to Jonathan Reynolds, he's the Business Secretary, about this very point. And here's what he told us on Chopper's Political Podcast.
Look, my view was always, by the way, the entire world was going to end up negotiating with the US. They're that important. That's the reality. Yeah. Let's get the front of that queue. We could have done a deal before Liberation Day. They wanted to have that moment. I understand that. But I think there's no doubt, challenging as it is, and as I say, I want zero tariffs. That's my endpoint. It's my goal. Even if that's not possible, that's what I think it should be. Yeah. Good. We have, with the approach we've taken, I do think it's been vindicated by the results that we've got.
We have tens of thousands of auto jobs, mainly Jaguar Land Rover, relying intently, I think, on this issue of the work. I should also say on golf, Keir Starmer doesn't play golf at all. The one person who does play, the best golfer in the cabinet, who is he, Tom?
Ooh, who's the best? I have absolutely
no idea.
Richard Hermer.
No.
So, yes.
That makes a lot of sense, because generally the best golfers are the richest people, right?
And Lord Hermer, the Attorney General.
Lord Hermer, who is an absolute squillionaire.
Well, and he's in trouble politically, but now's the moment, Lord Hermer. Step forward, save the day, play a round of golf with Donald Trump.
Would Richard Hermer want to meet Donald Trump? If I was to pick one person around that table who would least like to meet the President of the United States.
Donald Trump would say, you're giving away the Chagos Islands for money? What's going on, Lord Hermer?
But golf is actually all quite key to this, isn't it? Because there are some cynics who are suggesting that Donald Trump isn't signing on the dotted line for this trade deal because he wants the Open to be hosted at Turnberry.
That could be a side hustle for Donald Trump. Back in 2016, in April that year, before of course, the referendum blew all politics out of the water, President Obama came here and did play golf with David Cameron, and they are both quite good. They're kind of mid-teen handicappers. So
every US president is very good at golf. I think it's a prerequisite for the job at this point. I mean, there was that famous video of George W. Bush, who was giving some very serious press conference about terrorism or the war on terror, something like that, and he says something incredibly serious to the camera, and then he goes, "Now watch this drive." Just watch.
And it was a great drive, Tom.
Now, Choppy, you've brought something in.
Yes. Well, I was lucky enough to be at the 2017 inauguration for Donald Trump, in the audience, actually, amongst the lots of people who were there, Tom, in Washington. And I bought a souvenir, which is a Donald Trump talking pen. There it is.
You'll be selling that for millions soon.
You have to talk to it, and it talks back.
It talks back.
So you say things like, "Who is the best president ever, Donald Trump?" And this is what the pen says.
I will be the greatest president God ever created.
That's right. And don't ever ask about his wealth. He gets a bit angry.
Look, I'm really rich.
And he's got his own way of dealing with migration. Here's how he does it.
I will build a great, great wall.
Oh, those are the days.
And I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
And what Keir Starmer mustn't do is mention his hair or question his hair.
I don't wear a toupee. Yeah, I swear.
He swears.
It's like he's in the room with us.
That is magical.
He could be. So that gets us in the mood for Donald Trump.
Incredible
But the real guy's coming this weekend, so the pen goes away.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks so much for bringing us not only the news, but the vital plastic toy pen as well that I think we all appreciate.
Now, the Essex Police and Fire and Crime Commissioner has written to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper demanding that migrants are removed from Epping following days of protests.
Yes, overnight, Epping Forest District Council voted unanimously to urge the government to close the Bell Hotel, which has been designated as a migrant hotel.
Well, joining us now is the Conservative MP for Epping Forest, Neil Hudson. Now, Neil, can you tell us a little bit about what the situation is like on the ground in Epping at the moment?
Thank you for having me today. Yes, it's still a deeply distressing situation for us here in Epping, and there's the world and the Nationals media's looking at our small town in Essex. People quite rightly are very upset with what has happened over the last few weeks, and I think we need to remember that this started a couple of weeks ago with 3 alleged sexual assaults in the town of Epping, including of school-age girls. And so quite rightly, the community are very upset and worried. And we have mums and dads, we have grandparents, we have kids exerting their right, their democratic right to peacefully protest. So we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. Very sadly, last week's protests descended into violence, and I think that's some of the footage that you can see on your screens now. And there's no place for that in peaceful protest. And people came in from outside and it descended into violence, and the police were attacked. We've got to remember that 9 police officers have been injured through the course of this. 2 members of staff from the Bell Hotel were assaulted as well. And so these protests have been hijacked from people on either sides of the extremes. So I think we've got to bear in mind that people at the heart of this are the people of my community in Epping, deeply concerned about the situation with the Bell Hotel. So that's why we have all been urgently calling for the closure of the Bell Hotel in Epping. I've raised this in Parliament, and as you say, Epping Forest District Council, the Conservative-led council, had a unanimous motion supported cross-party last night calling on the government to close this. This is not a decision for council. The government opened this hotel up a few weeks ago against local advice with no consultation, but the decision lies with the Labour government now, and we're urging the Home Secretary to act now and close this hotel.
And yet, Neil, one of the most frustrating things about this is this hotel opened just a week or so before parliamentary recess, and now you and your colleagues on the green benches don't have any formal opportunity to ask the Home Secretary about this until September, when you guys return to the House of Commons. I mean, is it going to be a problem here throughout the summer, given that Parliament's in recess? Ministers, of course, get on with their job day to day, but there is that lack of scrutiny for the next month or so.
Tom, if I can gently correct you, this hotel opened up a few weeks ago against all the advice. The local council was not consulted. We were not consulted at all. We must remember that this hotel was closed by the Conservative government in April of last year, but the Labour government took the decision to open this up a few weeks ago. You're right, the Parliament has gone into recess. I was able to raise this on the floor of the House of Commons at the beginning of this week, and it was also raised in the House of Lords as well. I and my neighbour Alex Burkhardt in the neighbouring constituency. There is a hotel in that constituency as well. We've called for an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary, but we're urgently calling for the government to act now. We've seen scenes in Epping over the last week or so that we do not want to see, and people are feeling deeply distressed and upset. It's changing things for us in Epping. This hotel is right near a school, and also we've seen, because of the protests and because the protests have descended into violence, quite rightly the police are having to be very robust, but we've had churches cancel their services, we've had businesses closing early, so people want their town back to normal. We need to get the Bell Hotel closed, and closed now.
And it's obviously very tricky for Epping, this, but, you know, you've written in the Express today saying that the hotel is in the wrong place. Where is the right place? There's talk about migrants moving to a hotel in Canary Wharf. Would that be good for the financial district of London? Where's the right place for these migrants to go?
We have an asylum crisis at the moment, and quite rightly, the government needs to address this and actually has to house these people somewhere. We've got to remember that there are vulnerable asylum seekers in this hotel, and I've raised serious safeguarding and management issues with the management of this hotel, the way the Home Office are managing this. We've got to remember there are vulnerable asylum seekers in this hotel. But as I say, this hotel is right near a school. It's on the edge of a town, and now, because of what we have seen with these alleged sexual assaults a couple of weeks ago, and a few weeks ago an alleged arson attack in the same hotel, this is the wrong hotel in the wrong place. Now, the Labour government promised that they were going to address this issue. They said that they were going to smash the gangs. Well, they've not done that. We've seen small boat crossings up 50% this year, and we've seen 3,000 more people in the asylum system, in the asylum hotels now. The government has to get a grip. They've got to get a deterrent going. They've got to start processing these claims efficiently and effectively, and make sure that people are deported if their claims are unsuccessful. But urgently, I'm calling, as the constituency MP for Epping, we need to get this hotel closed down. We have a community deeply upset, deeply worried, and we have a tinderbox situation. We have people coming in from outside, and we've got another protest due to come on the weekend again. And can I, again, at this point in time, give my thanks and strong support to Essex Police. They are in an incredibly difficult position, and I've been talking to many residents. The police are keeping people safe, and they are reassuring the community. There's been a lot of criticism of the police, and a lot of that is inaccurate.
No
There's been
doubt. Neil Hudson, I'm afraid we've run to time, but thank you so much for joining us here. Conservative MP for Epping Forest, Neil Hudson there, live on Good Afternoon Britain.
And lots more to come on today's show after this break.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Bishopsthorpe Road, it's on the verges of York City Centre, and it was once crowned the best high street in Britain, but there is a new issue facing it, and that is?
The cost of parking. It's increased by, wait for it, 500%.
And they've done that overnight without consultation, right?
Yeah.
So it now costs £4.85 an hour, right? And what's that going to do? It's going to stop people visiting.
It's going to drive people away.
Anna, it's not easy to get around York, I have to say. You know, one road in, one road out type thing, congestion around the place. Yes, there's car parking spaces, but goodness me, I mean, this is obviously very, very controversial, and these are the sort of taxes, indirect taxes, that come on all of us. It's now going to cost us so much money just to get there, just to see there. Tell us more.
That's right, Eamon, and the City of York Council have introduced this to try and reduce congestion, to try and get more people on buses.
Extra things like this just mean that A, it's been unprepared, but also it just adds up, and it then stops you from doing other things. And then, for people that haven't got enough money to eat and to look after the kids and things, I think it's disgusting, to be honest.
Thank you for speaking with us this morning, Karen. Really appreciate it. The council say that they are going to review these charges. They're going to look at them every 3, 6 and 9 months and start engaging with the local community to just see how fair these prices are.
OK, Anna Riley.
Where are you parked this morning, Anna?
We're parked here, £22.50 it's cost us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
And good afternoon, Britain. It is 12:28. Now, to those strikes, and resident doctors are walking out again, but this time the government says they'll feel the pain.
Yes, up to 50,000 resident doctors, the new name for junior doctors. They're launching a 5-day strike demanding a 29% pay rise, despite already having received a 28.9% pay boost over the past 3 years.
And earlier, Health Secretary Wes Streeting said the impact on those requiring treatment will be kept to a minimum.
We're doing everything we can to minimise the risk to patients and to minimise the disruption. But I want to be honest with people. What we can't do is eliminate disruption or risk to patients. We know that there have been operations, appointments and procedures already cancelled, and we know that there will be real challenges over the next 5 days. And that is why the Prime Minister and I are so angry on behalf of patients and other NHS staff who are working hard to keep the show on the road, that the BMA have taken what is reckless and unnecessary action, forgetting that they've had a 28.9% pay increase from this government, and this government was also willing to go further on improving their working conditions.
Oh, that's what the Health Secretary has to say. Shall we speak to the head of lifestyle economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs now, Christopher Snowdon. Christopher, Wes Streeting there saying he's done all he can. The resident doctors, saying that they will not budge until there's more money. I mean, they do have a point, don't they, that other health systems around the world would pay them more?
They might pay some of them more, might pay some of them less. I mean, we don't know how much they'd be paid because we don't really have a functioning labour market with doctors, and that is one of the problems of having an NHS, which is essentially what we call a monopsony buyer. It's really the only buyer in the market. And if you really think about the structure of doctors' salaries, and indeed nurses, everybody in the NHS, they come out of university, they know exactly how much they're going to earn the first year and how much they're going to earn in 2 years' time and 5 years' time. And it's completely irrespective of how good they are. You just stick around long enough, you get paid a certain amount. Whereas if you had a lot of hospitals competing for labour, you would get the best ones paid more and the less good ones paid a bit less. So we don't know how much doctors are actually worth. We don't know what they would be worth in an open market.
Single doctor is a brilliant jet. Are you suggesting some doctors are less good than others? That's a very contentious argument to take.
But of course, we all know this to be true because this is true of every profession. But in your job and my job, Tom, we don't know how much we're going to be earning in 5 years' time. We would negotiate that often individually with our employer. In some jobs, of course, you have unions who would do this, but you're still just dealing with one employer, except when it comes to the state. And because we don't have a functioning labour market where people can negotiate individually, it comes down to essentially power and force. And it's the government using its power as a monopsony buyer versus the power of doctors to withhold their labour. And I don't see how this ends because it's financially and politically impossible, I think, for the government to meet these demands.
How is Wes Streeting going to deal with this? Because he's talking the tough talk at the moment. He says that doctors are going to feel the pain. But the truth is, as soon as Angela Rayner's employment bill comes in, it's going to be even easier for doctors to go on strike. How's that going to go down with the Health Secretary?
You can tell, I think, that Wes Streeting is pretty furious. He thought he was on the same side as doctors in getting the waiting list down, and he's discovered now that really it's about money, and it's always about money, really, with the BMA. I mean, I don't see this ending because we really can't afford to do it. But also, Wes Streeting quite rightly understands that there is a contagion effect here, and that if you give people 60% pay rise in the course of 2 years, then everybody else in the NHS is going to make similar demands, and other parts of the public sector are going to make similar demands. I wonder whether he will consider perhaps the nuclear option of banning doctors from striking, as the army and police are banned from striking.
Keir Starmer has said that he's tried to appeal to junior doctors over the heads of the BMA, asking them to do their bit for patients. But we don't know exactly what happened in the room. It sounds a little bit as though actually the BMA was on board with the Keir Starmer deal. They were about to sign on the dotted line, but the members, the resident doctors themselves, were against it. Is this actually really quite a big problem for Keir Starmer and his government? Because it isn't just the BMA. It does seem to be a sort of consensus opinion among resident doctors.
I would say actually the BMA board are significantly more hardline than the members are. Remember that the majority of members didn't vote for this. It was a very low turnout. I think there's also a question, actually, if we're going to have sensible employment legislation reform about, do you actually need to have a certain number of people voting for a strike before you're legally allowed to carry one out? The BMA was taken over essentially 2 or 3 years ago, something called the Doctors' Vote. It was rather like the Corbynite takeover of the Labour Party. Members were given a list of people who were going to really be very hardline on the strikes, and the vast majority of the board now are Doctors' Vote people, and they're very, very vociferous. They're pretty hard left. They're very much against physician associates and other kind of sensible reforms to the NHS. And I don't think they're going to stand down. I don't think they feel they have to. I think they feel that they've got Wes Streeting by the short and curlies, and they kind of have.
Gosh, well, on that positive note, Christopher Snowdon, thanks indeed for joining us, Head of Lifestyle Economics at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Now, some breaking news just coming into us. The Riverdance star Michael Flatley is intending to seek a nomination to become the next president of Ireland.
During a radio interview, he said he did not believe the Irish people have a voice, not a true, proper, deep voice that speaks their language.
So that's the Riverdance star, Michael Flatley, announcing he is to stand to become Ireland's next president.
This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, as the summer holidays begin, many families are preparing to head away on holiday, but the Travel Association predicts this weekend is set to be one of the busiest this year. Will you be braving the traffic?
And after the break, a shock poll reveals half of Brits do not believe Islam is compatible with British values, while 4 in 10 think Muslim immigrants have a negative impact on the UK. All of that after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 12:35. Resident doctors have begun their 5-day strike over pay. That's despite Sir Keir Starmer's last-ditch appeal saying the walkout will put patients and the NHS at risk. US President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Scotland later today to open a new golf course and a memorial to his late mother. First Minister John Swinney said Scotland will have a platform to make its voice heard during the visit. 19-year-old Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife last year, sparking a huge search, died by accident after falling from a height, a coroner has concluded. Sir Keir Starmer is facing pressure to immediately recognise Palestine as a state amid growing calls from MPs and a commitment from France. The Prime Minister will hold emergency talks on Gaza with France and Germany today, saying the suffering and starvation unfolding there is unspeakable and indefensible. And Jeremy Corbyn has attended a mega picket in support of the Birmingham bin strikes after launching his new political party yesterday. Mr Corbyn told Birmingham City Council to get a deal now, settle this dispute now, and pledge yourself to genuine equal pay. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 1 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now for many, today's going to be a dry, fine and bright day, but towards the northwest we have a fair amount of cloud and there will be some rain pushing in. That's because there is a front making its way gradually southeastwards. It's not a particularly active front, so it's not bringing a huge amount of rain. Nonetheless, it is going to turn a bit damp across central and eastern parts and also southern parts of Scotland as we go into this afternoon, and a bit more cloud and perhaps a few spots of rain pushing into the far northwest of England, western Wales and maybe the tip of Cornwall. Behind the front towards the northwest, some brighter skies but a scattering of showers. The best of the sunshine will be across more central parts of England. Some sunny spells towards the southeast, and in the south we're looking at highs in the high 20s Celsius, so feeling pretty warm if not hot for some of us here. As we go into this evening, and it's staying fairly cloudy across many parts of Scotland, but there will be some bright or sunny breaks for a few, but also still a few showers, particularly towards the northwest. Similar across parts of Northern Ireland. Across the far south of Scotland, maybe the far north of England, maybe some more persistent rain for a short period of time, and quite cloudy across western Wales and the far southwest of England, and a little bit of rain here. Otherwise, largely dry with some clear skies across central, eastern and southern parts of England. And that's how it's likely to stay through much of the night. The rain's going to continue to break up as it edges just a little bit further south. There will be some clear spells around, but despite the clear spells, because humidity is quite high at the moment, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, most places holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. So a pretty warm night, a little bit muggy for some of us. Then as we go into Saturday, a bit of a showery theme for many of us. Plenty of showers towards the northwest, and a swathe of showers will push their way eastwards across parts of England. The focus of these will be across parts of the East Midlands into Lincolnshire and also across northern parts of East Anglia, where they could turn heavy and perhaps thundery. Temperatures for many will be down a couple of degrees.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A8, delays westbound between Port Glasgow and Greenock are due to a breakdown. Caution and extra time are needed. On the M4 eastbound, closures from junction 45 Ynysforgan to junction 44 Lonlas are confirmed because of maintenance with diversions. In West Berkshire, the A34 northbound lane closure between the M4 and A4 185 results in 40-minute delays. Slow traffic on the A30 eastbound between A386 and A382 is caused by a multi-vehicle incident delaying up to 90 minutes. And on the trains, expect disruptions on the Gatwick Express through Haywards Heath. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past midday. Now, a new poll has sparked a big debate, with half of Brits saying Islam doesn't align with British values.
Muslim immigrants are viewed more negatively than any other religious group. But one young imam says the fear comes from misunderstanding, and younger Brits may be showing signs of change.
Well, joining us now to discuss this extraordinary poll is the president of the Oxford Institute for British Islam, Dr. Taj Haji. Dr. Taj, thanks so much for being with us. This is some pretty astounding numbers, really, in terms of whether or not Islam is seen as being compatible with British values. What do you make of it?
Well, the poll is not shocking, but it's surprising. I think what's important is that how do Muslims behave like this and believe in these things? Well, we're not tackling the root of the problem. I mean, they have been told by the mosques, by the imams, by the leadership that they need to be segregated, to be separated, and they also have a supremacist idea of their faith. That these three S's, the supremacy, the segregation, and separation, that is the root cause of them not being adjusted and adapted to the society. So they have been told also that democracy and all the rule of law and the British establishment, the king, the monarchy, the parliament, all of this stuff, this is just all anti-Islamic. Now, my thing has always been, if any Muslim find this unconscionable, that they can relate to it, then why are they here? They don't need to be in this country. They need to go elsewhere where they can feel happy with some aspect of Sharia law. And when this young imam says Islam is misunderstood, I would actually say no. Islam is not misunderstood because they are distorting what the Quran is saying. For example, the Quran doesn't say you must have halal meat and you must have female genital mutilation and so forth, all of these egregious practices. All of this stuff comes from manufactured, fabricated sources of Islam after Muhammad. And what are these sources? They are the hadith, the supposed sayings of Muhammad written 300 years after his death.
But Dr. Taj, there are lots and lots of Muslims who would say the hadiths are totally fundamental to what they see as Islam. You have a theological disagreement there, but perhaps the majority of Muslims in this country think the hadiths are canon.
The Quran repeatedly says that you don't need any other sources. This stuff of the hadith, the Sharia and all of this stuff is being promoted by the clergy because that gives them power. Okay, now, for example, myself as a Muslim, I'm totally integrated in the society. I go to my local pub and have my orange juice. I support Tottenham Hotspur. They don't always win. And I dress like anyone else. And I walk in the street and no one knows I'm Muslim. Not because I'm ashamed of it. You don't need to be a Muslim by having a beard, by having a burqa, by being a hijab. Your Islam is inside you. It's not for decoration and for symbolic, emblematic purposes.
You're saying there that some of the senior leadership, if you like, of the Islamic community is becoming more hardline. What about sort of ordinary young Muslims in the UK? Generally, we're seeing that young people in the UK are sort of moving to the left, becoming more liberal. But within the Islam faith, is the opposite happening? Do you see young Muslim men becoming more right-wing?
You're right, and this is most distressing. You know why most young people, as you correctly point out, they're on the left of the spectrum usually, but yes, sadly, they are becoming, for Muslims, most of them are on the right because of propaganda, conditioning, brainwashing, and indoctrination. Now, I mean, I'm not the supporter of Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, but he says something very true, and we should actually be alert to. He says, the bigger the lie, the more you repeat it, the more they believe it. And so the clergy tells them these lies, they repeat it all the time, that even youngsters are seduced by this nonsensical theology that comes from the East, that comes from Saudi Arabia, from Pakistan, and so forth. We need an Islam, that's why we started our institute, an Islam that belongs in Britain, a British Islam to promote integration and to promote all types of adjustment.
So Dr. Taj, do you think in some ways this poll almost is too simplistic? That there are some forms of Islam that are not compatible with British values, but there are other forms of Islam that are?
Yeah, but I think it's not too simplistic. I think, sadly, the majority of Muslims think that they should not integrate. For example, I asked one young man once, tell me how you're integrated. And you know what his answer was? I have fish and chips on a Friday. Now, with due respect, I mean, that is not proof of being integrated. You know, I mean, we really need to tackle this root cause, which is theology, coming from the Hadith and the Sharia, that tells Muslims to be apart and separated from others, instead of being part of the society. We should try to make this wonderful democracy of ours better, to enhance it, to be more inclusive and more forward-looking, instead of saying, no, we want nothing to do with democracy, we want nothing to do with British society, we'll be separated, we'll live in apartheid ghettos. And this is the big problem. When we have Muslims living in these silos, these ghettos, how will they actually integrate? And that is why it's not surprising that the bulk of British people, the non-Muslim people, feel that Muslims are not integrated and they do not want to be part and parcel of this society.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Taj Haji there. And that's a really sort of interesting and nuanced point of view there. Really, really interesting to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, there's much more to come on Good Afternoon Britain. But in the meantime, if you're in search of some holiday sunshine and have been languishing in the rain in some parts of this country over the past 7 days, well, perhaps you'd like to check the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. It's the hottest time of the year over the eastern Mediterranean, but even so, temperatures are going to be 5 to 10 degrees above average through Cyprus and parts of Turkey. Inland temperatures could get into the mid-40s. Not hot, though, across central and western parts of the Med, with quite a few outbreaks of showery rain spreading south across Italy. Largely fine and sunny for Spain and Portugal. Plenty of sunshine in the Canaries, and temperatures also rising in Tenerife into next week, getting into the mid-30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 to 1.
With schools out and the summer holidays kicking off, millions of Brits are getting ready to head abroad in search of some sun.
Well, travel experts say this weekend could be one of the busiest of the year, as around 2 million people are expected to jet off, and airports are bracing themselves for the rush.
Now, I can't really imagine anything worse myself. I think I'll be staying in London this weekend. But joining us now is travel expert Sally Gethin. So, if our viewers want to avoid this mad holiday rush, 2 million people descending on British airports, is there anywhere they can go to sort of get away from the main tourist hordes, or are they best off just staying in the UK?
There's no real getting away from it, because obviously school's breaking up and it is the peak summer season. So whichever way you look at it, air, sea, road or rail, you're bound to face some disruption. The trick is actually checking first, being absolutely prepared in all cases. So particularly, obviously, with air travel, We've got over 550,000 people heading through the UK's major airports this weekend. And so, and the largest amount, as you'd expect, is through the major gateways. So London Heathrow, Gatwick, but also Manchester and Birmingham, for example. So you really have to be prepared for that. People are heading off to the Med mostly, to the south of France, to Greece. Spain is particularly popular, the Costa Brava, the Canary Islands, for example. If you are going by air, be prepared for some flight delays. There are very well-known air traffic disruption and delays this summer for various reasons, a shortage of air traffic controllers. There's been a lot of strikes by air traffic controllers in France, and 1 in 3 flights does have some interaction with French airspace. So be prepared for some delays.
And with those security queues, I keep hearing that the restriction of having only 100 millilitres in your hand luggage is going to be dropped at some point soon, but it seems as though some airports have enacted that drop and some haven't, so it seems really difficult to navigate. What should we do about that?
Well, you are absolutely right. It's a confusing picture. And the reason for that is these big pieces of kit, they're huge, these scanners, which, solve the problem of that pesky rule with, having to decant your liquids everywhere or throw a bottle of water away before you actually board the flight. They're being rolled into airports incrementally. So some airports have got these new scanners and others haven't. The problem doesn't end there, though, because if you're on a round trip return flight, you've got to come back into the UK. And that depends on whether the airport at your destination also has the scanners. So what I'd say is, as those are being phased in, just make sure you're prepared for the worst case scenario for that liquids rule to be in place. And then you get a nice surprise if you don't have to abide by it when you get there.
OK, well, Sally Gethin, thanks indeed for all your expertise and advice there. Travel expert Sally Gethin. I've got to say, in France, when they have holidays, they do it regionally. So it's a different weekend.
That is a brilliant idea.
Why in this country do we decide that every single school child in the country who goes to a state school must go on the same weekend? I mean,
I'm absolutely dreading my baby getting to school age and having to travel in school holiday season. I feel very sorry for parents of older kids out there. So expensive travelling at a time like this.
Yeah. You can save so much money just doing it off-seat, but then people start pulling their kids out of school and that creates a whole world of problems. Don't do that. That's not official advice from Good Afternoon Britain. But we should say that there is much more coming up on today's programme. We're still expecting the latest video of the President of the United States as he sets off on his transatlantic journey to Scotland. That's all to come after the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There are going to be a fair few showers around tomorrow. Some of them could turn heavy, possibly even thundery, but currently we have a relatively weak front making its way southeastwards across the country. It's bringing a fair bit of cloud in some places, particularly towards the northwest, and also a little bit of rain, but nothing particularly heavy. And in fact, that rain's going to continue to break up and fragment as it makes its way southeastwards. So a little bit damp at times overnight across parts of northern England, across parts of Wales, maybe the far southwest. More cloud here, but nothing particularly heavy rain-wise. Plenty of showers towards the northwest, drier towards the southeast, and some clearer skies here, though temperatures not dropping a huge amount. Humidity is high at the moment, and that's going to keep our temperatures up. Many places staying in the mid, possibly even high teens. So a little bit muggy tonight, could be a little uncomfortable for sleeping for some of us. Looking ahead to tomorrow morning, and a showery start across much of Scotland. Far eastern parts, Aberdeenshire perhaps having a drier, brighter picture, but plenty of showers elsewhere. Also a few showers pushing into parts of Northern Ireland. Still that weak front across some parts of northern England, and that's kind of bringing the focus for some showery rain as we go through the morning. But that focus is going to gradually make its way eastwards as we go through the day, and as it does so, we could see some of those showers pepping up. So across parts of Lincolnshire, the East Midlands, even into parts parts of northeast Anglia. That's where we have the greatest risk of some heavy showers by the time that we get into the afternoon, maybe even a bit of thunder. Some heavy showers are possible further south as well. Temperatures for many, they're not going to be quite as high as today, but nonetheless we're looking at mid-20s towards the south, high teens, low 20s further north, and so feeling pretty warm if you catch any bright or sunny spells. As we go through later on Saturday night, most of the showers will clear away and die out, so turning dry across much of England and Wales, but some heavier rain perhaps pushing into parts of the far northwest. And then there will be some dry weather to start next week, but a changeable theme looks set to continue.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Camilla Tominey. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
And Tom, look what I received this morning.
This is so sweet. Oh!
Isn't that cute? From one of our viewers and listeners. A little, I think it's homemade.
Shall I hold it up?
Yeah, you hold it up. And a little tiny matching hat as well, which is very cute. Goes up here. So there you go, a little matching hat. And also a lovely little blanket as well. Wow. This is from Judith from Leeds, who wrote me a lovely little letter, and to Patrick as well, wishing us well, saying that she loves watching our shows, and I hope we enjoy this little outfit. So there you go.
It's like your little baby is with us already.
So yes, Judith, I hope you're watching, because thank you very much indeed. It's really sweet of you to send that to me. It took a little while to get to us, but we've got it this morning, so that's so cute.
It's incredible craftsmanship, actually.
I'll make sure to take a little picture when the baby arrives.
Are you sure your baby isn't going to be French?
There's something French around it. It's a good thing I like France, so there you go.
Oui, oui.
That's very cute indeed. I just thought I'd say thank you, because it was a really nice surprise this morning.
Yeah, no, it is actually really, really lovely. It does, I mean...
To bring a tear to your eye, Tom.
Well, we haven't really...
Feeling very emotional.
I was going to say... We haven't really mentioned, your pregnancy in a little while. And
after the big reveal.
You're still with us for a few months more before your due date.
I have to depart, yes.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you've got me for a little longer. We'll see how it goes.
Marvellous.
See how it goes. It'll be rolling me in. Before I leave this desk.
It'll be a GB baby.
GB News baby. GB baby.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 25th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Olivia Utley. Breaking this hour, Donald Trump is now en route to Scotland, where the US president will stay for a 5-day visit, both to see his golf courses and to refine the recent trade deal secured and signed with Keir Starmer.
Lay off Donald Trump, says the Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds to GB News. He's too important to British jobs.
Elsewhere, it's hotel hostility. Yes, the Essex Police Commissioner demands migrants are removed from Epping as the local council votes to close the Bell Hotel. But will the government listen as the standoff deepens? How will they respond?
And a record number of farms were forced to close for good this year after Rachel Reeves's tax raid is accused of making the future of thousands of rural businesses unviable.
Now, MPs have called for a debate on a so-called wealth tax ahead of the autumn budget amid surging borrowing costs for the government.
And Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly. Will the UK follow suit?
Pornographic websites will be forced to deploy age verification checks, including credit card details or webcam face scans from today. But will this put law-abiding adults at risk?
And one McDonald's branch has set up a quiet working area so people can work from home while tucking into a Happy Meal. Would you work in a Mackey's?
Well, we can show you live pictures now of an airport in Maryland, just off from where Washington, D.C. is. Donald Trump is expected to board Air Force One, of course, any moment now, and that will be his transatlantic journey to Scotland, to Turnberry and to Aberdeen.
And we're set for an exciting trip as Donald Trump is in the UK, in Scotland, for 5 days. We're going to have a bilateral meeting with Keir Starmer. Of course, there is going to be a full-on state visit next month. So this is a sort of little taster for what's to come. It'll be really interesting to see what Donald Trump says. Will he say anything before he boards Air Force One? We've got Christopher Hope here, our political editor, in the studio. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect politically from the next few days?
So this visit was started in that meeting in the Oval Office back in February when we filmed. I was there, of course, personally, but we saw, didn't we, that letter being handed over by Keir Starmer, an invitation to the King for a state visit and a meeting before that in Scotland. So this is it. This is the original offer from the King. He won't be meeting with Donald Trump. Apparently their diaries don't work together. So we're coming over really for a 5-day visit, 3 of those days in a private capacity, looking at his golf courses. Monday's the big day. That's the bilateral day. Meetings with Keir Starmer and with John Swinney, the Scottish First Minister. On the agenda, maybe a pharmaceuticals deal to add to the other elements of that trade deal agreed in the Canadian Rockies between the two men, and maybe something on steel tariffs and aluminium tariffs for UK producers.
And does it look as though that pharmaceuticals deal will be agreed? Because it could prove incredibly costly to the UK, couldn't it, if Trump goes ahead with these promised tariffs, these plans?
100%, a vital part of that. We were speaking last night to Jonathan Reynolds, who is the business secretary. He was being very vague about the areas, but there's no question America wants to expand that trade deal from a bare bones deal into more of a full-fat version.
Now, of course, for Donald Trump, this is part holiday, part business. When we see him approach that aeroplane, of course, it doesn't become Air Force One until he steps onto it.
I did not know that.
Any plane the president is on is referred to with the call sign Air Force One. There are actually a couple of identical planes and depending on which one the president rides on, is Air Force One. Whichever the vice president is on, Air Force Two. Similarly, Marine One, when he takes off from the south lawn of the White House in the helicopter, they almost always fly 2 identical helicopters together as a security measure, so that if anyone were to try and attack the president, well, they'd have a 50% chance of getting the wrong helicopter. But when we do see Donald Trump step on board what will become Air Force One, what do you think will be going through his head, Christopher? I mean, obviously he loves Scotland, he loves his golf courses there. He'll be wanting to get away from some domestic issues, particularly with the MAGA base being divided over a lot of issues, particularly the Jeffrey Epstein list and the secrecy around that. But there will also be demands on his time for foreign affairs. Obviously, France recognising Palestine, that's going to be a big issue in America. But this trade deal too, what does refine actually mean?
I think it means push it into other different areas. So, as I say, the pharmaceuticals piece is vital, as you say, Olivia, for UK manufacturers, maybe to ensure that we're not hit too hard. We don't export much, frankly, steel and aluminium to America, but let's ensure the tariffs aren't as high when they're meant to come in globally, I think, later next month. So, and he always wants to, I think, he wants to go home. His mum's, of course, from the Isle of Lewis, so there's a family connection there. It is a bit of a fortress around Turnberry. We saw that earlier. He'll go to Aberdeen early next week. There could be some gags about wind farms. He's not happy about wind farms at all. He probably can see them from his golf course there.
More generally, how is the relationship, the special relationship between the UK and the US looking at the moment? It sometimes feels as though the relationship between Keir Starmer and the US president is quite volatile. They sometimes seem to be in a kind of bromance. Sometimes they seem to hate each other. Is it make or break over the next few days?
I think consistently Donald Trump has been nice about Keir Starmer. Going back to September last year, when he was very pleasant about it in the first remarks he gave out about
during
Keir
the
Starmer.
election campaign,
well,
was he a little more critical, though?
Well, no, I think when he's met him, he says he's a decent man. I think they are completely, they're chalk and cheese, the two individuals. I asked him for GB News in the Oval Office in February.
Where he said, you have a beautiful face.
I have a smiling face. I was smiling away. Well, but how you want them to come to you, so you smile away.
Yeah,
and
you
look
friendly. Right.
But the question I asked him was what's called the toothpaste question. So back in the Camp David summit between George W. Bush and Tony Blair in 2002, someone said to them, what do you have in common? You're a Republican president, a Labour Prime Minister, and George W. Bush said we share the same Colgate toothpaste. It became the Colgate Summit. So I was trying to tease that out of Donald Trump, but by then he just met in the Oval, just met with Keir Starmer. I think he respects Keir Starmer as somebody doing his best for the country, politically very different, and it's acknowledged by Donald Trump, but he recognises that this deep friendship between our two countries matters far more.
So, Chris, a little bit more, please, if you can, on what Trump is planning here when he comes over to the UK next month for his full-on state visit. Is that going to be different from what's happening? He was pushing to get a full Macron treatment. He was pushing to go to Balmoral. He was pushing to speak in Parliament. It's all cleverly been planned during recess to avoid all of that. How's he going to feel about that?
Yeah, well, he has said in terms to the BBC he doesn't care about not being part of this parliamentary session. We thought might feel offended because President Macron had to be able to brief both MPs and peers in that royal chamber. It's not going to be given to Donald Trump. But I think he understands that he is divisive. We're trying to track down where the Trump baby is, of course, was erected over Parliament Square back in 2017-18 when he was last here, I think, on a state visit. That's not there at the moment, but he is a divisive figure. And that's why we've heard from Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary. We may have a clip if you want to play it, but we have a clip with him telling Choppers Politics, the podcast we have, why it's so important to respect the office of him being president. He's so important to us. Whatever you think about him personally, he matters a lot to this country.
No, we'll come to that in a little bit. We just don't want to miss it if Donald Trump starts to walk across the screen and we're looking at Jonathan Reynolds. But of course, Donald Trump has spoken about Aberdeen a lot in the past. It was only in May of this year that, sort of almost out of nowhere, he posted a truth social, post rather than tweets, because he does use his own social media account much more than he does Twitter these days. But he was saying that I strongly recommend the United Kingdom that in order to get their energy costs down, they stop with the costly and unsightly windmills and incentivise modernising drilling in the North Sea, where large amounts of oil lay waiting to be taken, a century of drilling left, with Aberdeen as the hub. The old-fashioned tax system disincentivised drilling rather than the opposite. The UK's energy costs would go way down and fast. I mean, he was really getting into the weeds there.
Unhelpful advice, probably, there as far as
the Aberdeen oil and gas industry. I mean, this is something we could hear again.
Indeed, that's why we saw, of course, I would argue domestically, we saw Nigel Farage there in Aberdeen making those very points. He would see that as treasure, as, UK treasure. Why has it been given away so easily? Why are we allowing ourselves not to use that to benefit UK jobs? The White House overnight has been playing down the significance of the meeting between Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. They're saying it's a relationship-building exercise, an amuse-bouche, if you like, ahead of the big banquet, which will be the visit in September. He's, as I say, meeting with John Swinney, the Scottish First Minister, too, on Monday.
Now, I should say that if you squint very carefully and try and peer into one of the windows on that plane, you might see a familiar face. I'm reliably informed that on board Air Force One right now is Bev Turner, of this parish as she prepares for her new GB News show, which will be airing from midnight to 2 a.m, of course, from Washington, D.C. A new studio that's being prepared over there in the heart of American politics, following all things Trump, which, of course, affect all things here in the United Kingdom.
Well, very exciting for Bev Turner and for us here at GB News. Really looking forward to speaking to Bev and finding out what it was like. I think we all want to be a fly on the wall inside what will soon be Air Force One as soon as Donald Trump gets on that plane, and Bev Turner is there, so we look forward to hearing from her.
I should say, when he lands in Scotland later today, there'll be no big band for him. He'll walk off as almost not quite a private citizen, but it's a private holiday, a family holiday. So he'll walk off, and then he'll go and as I say, go to Turnberry. May play golf there. Keir Starmer doesn't play golf; he plays football. So we're pondering who might be the person who can play golf with him. Richard Hermer, who's this under fire Attorney General, he could step forward. He's a good golf handicapper, so we'll see if that happens. But yeah, it's really it's more of a chat about and setting the stage for the big meeting next month.
And how can we expect Donald Trump to be treated when he arrives in Scotland? Because generally Donald Trump is not that popular in the UK, I think it's fair to say, although perhaps a little more popular this time than he was during his last presidency. But actually in this community in Scotland where he owns his golf course, where he's been ploughing money into the area, where he gives $50 tips, he is apparently quite popular. So is he actually going to have quite a warm reception?
Yes, our man on the ground there, Tony Maguire, was saying exactly that. I mean, local people rely on Turnberry for jobs, they rely on other... he's important as a big employer locally. And also, I think there's a feeling in Scotland that one must respect the office of the President of the United States. As I say, when the seal is what you respect, whatever you think about the individual, he does keep us safe. I mean, he guarantees our nuclear deterrent. He's important to us for trade, and you have to respect that. I think that is what I think Donald Trump sees in Keir Starmer, that deeper relationship going back decades to Churchill.
And of course, previous prime ministers have been accused of being a bit of a poodle to the US president. It's an incredibly difficult path to tread. You don't want to get on the wrong side of the US president. In fact, the most influential Britain can be in the world is when we are almost in lockstep with the Americans. But there is always the accusation of being subservient to the Americans. And that's what Keir Starmer faced a few accusations of, particularly at the G7 in Canada, when he was seen to bend down on the floor and pick up those papers outdoors that fell out of Donald Trump's folder there. The Conservatives have used that image of Donald Trump, of Keir Starmer bending down in front of Donald Trump as some sort of page in the medieval age.
Particularly awkward for this Labour government, who were, of course, pretty critical of Donald Trump while they were in opposition, now trying to backpedal to dig themselves out of that hole and act as though they are sort of best friends with Keir Starmer.
I think the photograph looked quite difficult for Keir Starmer, bending down, picking up the papers. But I was obviously in the Rockies, and I talked to people who were observing that, and everyone, all the cynical journalists, definitely said that was just basically a younger man picking up papers for an older man, because he's 79.
It's a polite thing to do.
It was a polite thing to do. The pictures are difficult, maybe out of context, but everyone who's around there knew what Keir Starmer was doing. He simply picked up papers for an older guy who had dropped them, as anyone would do, I think.
Are we expecting similarly sort of awkward pictures, if you like, from this golf course, where it does seem rather awkward that Keir Starmer is going to, I think, be there sort of on the golf course with Donald Trump playing golf, Keir Starmer sort of hanging around in the background trying to get a word in. Could this be optically difficult?
We haven't yet been told when Keir Starmer's going to Scotland. We know he'll be there on Monday. We don't know about his travel plans. We'll try and find that out for GB News today. Yeah, it could be awkward if you don't want to see him driving the caddy car. That'd be really bad. But it's going to be pouring with rain as well, so I think that's also a concern. It won't be easy.
Now, I'm being told that we actually do have a picture of Bev Turner. There she is, just before she was walking on board that plane. So this is going to be a really big deal, this new GB News show, live from the heart of Washington, D.C.
What a way to start it off.
And what a way to kick it off, what access. So this is going to be a really, really big moment for the channel. I'm very much looking forward to it launching in September, that is, of course, but lots of preparation going in to make sure it is the best show that it can possibly be. But, of course, we are waiting for Donald Trump to board Air Force One himself for this 5-day visit to the United Kingdom, meeting not just with Keir Starmer, but the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney, and, of course, many big head honchos in the golfing world, because that is the primary visit here. Christopher Hope, our political editor, just explain the difference between a state visit, which is what will be happening in around a month's time, and this perhaps more of a working visit. What are the actual differences between these two categories of foreign dignitary visit?
Yes, I mean, wherever the president goes, I mean, it's political because he's the president of the United States, he's Donald Trump. But this is one where there's no bells and whistles, so there's no marching bands, there's no well, there might be red carpet. I'm not sure on that. I mean, it's going to be very, very basic. This it's basically he'll arrive, he'll walk, he'll wave, get into a limousine, or the Beast, I'm sure is already there, this bulletproof limousine, and then be driven to Turnberry, and then he'll be playing golf, I imagine, over the weekend, and then he'll welcome Keir Starmer and John Swinney on Monday.
And let's hope
is he wearing a suit, or is he dressed down Donald because he's on holiday? Again, all these things matter.
Well, the weather in Scotland, let's hope it picks up a little bit. I think it looked a bit misty, a bit foggy,
very bad forecast
a bit rainy there
Tom.
for Tony, so that might not be the best ideal weather for golfing, or indeed one of Donald Trump's famous polo shirts. But famously the Beast, that sort of bulletproof, gas-proof limousine that carries the president's blood type and all the rest of it. I mean, the most extraordinary science fiction type machine, got stuck outside Downing Street a few years ago when Obama was coming to visit. It got stuck in the turning circle.
Very British. It is a small little space to get into Downing Street.
I imagine that Donald Trump's golf course in Turnberry will have slightly larger turning circles, and perhaps they will have planned ahead to make sure that the massive American car doesn't quite get stuck in small English or Scottish roads.
And it is complete lockdown there. I mean, I think someone's described it as a prison camp. It's like a full border going around the golf course because, of course, he is a target for so many people who wish him ill.
Can we hear a little bit about that relationship between John Swinney as well and Donald Trump? Because it sounds like it's going to be pretty awkward for John Swinney too. Of course, members of the SNP aren't, on the whole, huge Donald Trump fans. How's that going to play out?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that question. I think he's going to, well, we're told he'll be raising Gaza. Now, Gaza is a big issue which Donald Trump won't want to talk about. He'll be taking Israel's side in that conversation, of course, overnight. France is going to recognise the state of Palestine along with 150 other countries. That's certainly not where Donald Trump is. So he will try and raise Gaza. He'll probably talk a bit about the oil and gas industry, wind farms. I think the SNP is more nuanced on that. They recognise the importance of Aberdeen, of Scottish jobs in the oil and gas sector. So there could be some common ground there, saying we want to support oil and gas jobs. And, of course, he's a big domestic employer. He employs lots of people. Tourism is one of the biggest, I think, the biggest sector in Scotland. So.
It is interesting that he's agreed to meet with John Swinney. Perhaps it shows John Swinney's more understated approach to things than some of his predecessors. I wonder if Donald Trump would have met Humza Yousaf, or if he would have met Nicola Sturgeon.
Who John Swinney is.
Yes. I think, was it tested from memory with Nicola Sturgeon? I mean, we've got some words here from John Swinney. He says that Scotland will be showcased on the world stage. This provides Scotland with a platform to make its voice heard on the issues that matter, including war and peace, justice and democracy.
That's the most politician
Here we
statement
go.
I've ever heard, saying absolutely
there.
nothing whatsoever.
Although all those areas are broadly controlled by the London government, not by Scotland.
Well, absolutely, trying to stay on side with everyone.
Move on from that. As First Minister, he says his responsibility is to advance our interests of Scotland, raise global and humanitarian issues of significant importance, including the unimaginable suffering we're seeing in Gaza, and ensure Scotland's voice is heard at the highest levels of government across the world. So there's no question John Swinney, quite a new in as the Scottish First Minister, he'll be trying to make sure that the SNP's voice, his voice is heard at with Donald Trump.
Treading a real tightrope there, keeping his party on side and keeping the president on side. Thank you very much for that, Christopher Hope. Really good to hear from you there.
Absolutely. Now we should say that we're going to have our trusty elves in the gallery here at GB News, keeping an eye on this footage for you. So as soon as we do see a Commonwealth Garden President of the United States, we will switch straight back to this live feed here from Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, not far from Washington, DC.
But for now, the Essex Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner has written to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper demanding that migrants are removed from Epping following days of protests.
Well, overnight, Epping Forest District Council voted unanimously to urge the government to close the Bell Hotel.
Well, joining us now is the leader of Epping Forest District Council, Chris Whitbread. Chris, what's the situation like on the ground in Epping at the moment? How are you feeling about it?
Well, obviously, last night went very well, and across the chamber, everyone agreed with the motion that we put forward to say that we want the Home Office to close the Bell Hotel for all the reasons we've stated before. And it's time for them to listen and not instruct us that they want to use that hotel. What's it like on the ground? I'm hoping that we're starting to see some return to normality on our high street now. People have been very tense over recent days with the fear of further violent protests. Everyone can understand the peaceful protest. It's when they get out of hand like they did on Thursday and Sunday of last week. So we're hoping that things will remain calm. If there are protests, that it will be peaceful. But of course, we're still very nervous of that at the moment.
What do you say to those who say that the police haven't been particularly helpful, at least on one occasion, escorting counter-protesters very, very close indeed to the centre point of the main protest, perhaps causing a bit of animosity, causing tension, creating that touchstone moment when things kicked off a few nights ago? Was that a wrong decision of the police to bring these two implacably opposed groups quite so close together?
Well, the police are in such a difficult position, aren't they? Because both sets of groups of people have the right to peacefully protest. And if the police didn't take the one group up from the station up to the Bell and make sure that they progressed and didn't break away into other areas of the town, they would have been in trouble. By bringing them to the hotel and then eventually escorting them from the hotel when things got out of hand, they would have been in trouble.
What I'm trying to say, Chris, is that there isn't a right to protest wherever you want. Of course, the police can say one group should protest here, the other group should protest here. That could have been set ahead of time. I wonder, given we're expecting more protests this coming weekend, are these conversations that you've had with the police, could it be handled better?
I think the police, if you look at the arrangements last night, the police handled the situation really well. We had a peaceful protest outside the council buildings, and it went really well. And I'm sure the police, if there is a further protest on Sunday, which has been muted, I'm sure that the police will handle it equally well.
Well, thank you very much. That was Chris Whitbread there from the Epping Forest District Council.
Yeah, lots to think about there in terms of how the government is going to respond to the council. I mean, sometimes it can feel that councils are entirely impotent in their own area.
They're desperately
unanimous decision there.
Yvette Cooper's clear the hotel and it's not happening.
Christopher Hope, our political editor.
Well, on that point, I've been texting people close to Yvette Cooper all morning saying, how will you respond to the Essex Police and Crime Commissioner saying, empty that hotel? Now, a source is close to Yvette Cooper tell me this. She will respond, but currently they have no record of receiving that letter yet from the PCC. So until that letter arrives formally, they can't respond to it. But we're trying to get...
Buying herself a little bit of time there, perhaps, because there isn't another obvious site to move those migrants across
also,
to.
how would it look? If you empty a hotel under pressure, that's opening an invitation to other groups around the country to do the same to migrant hotels.
Incredibly difficult position there, well, for all involved. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's lots still to come on today's programme.
We'll be heading live to America as Donald Trump takes off for Scotland. We'll be there.
But after the break, a record number of farms were forced to close for good this year. This following Rachel Reeves's tax raid, accused of making the future of thousands of rural businesses simply unviable.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
for working class families, what are the fundamentals that they are looking for? They're looking for good housing, they're looking for good schools, they're looking for good jobs that give them a fair day's wage for a fair day's graft, they're looking for a strong NHS, and they're looking for safe communities to live in. When you have all of those foundations in place, then it means that children, young people, they can flourish, they can do well alongside their parents and their grandparents. And I think if you look at what this Labour government has done, we're 10 months into a 5-year programme here, by the way, but in the first 10 months of this new Labour government, they have put major policy reforms in place across all 5 of those key foundations for working class families. And so I'm confident that we're starting to see some of it here in Basildon, where Basildon is starting to get better again. I'm confident that by the end of this Parliament, because of what the government is doing now, we will start to see some positive changes for working class families.
OK, Christo, what do you make of it?
I think that Bridget Phillipson makes a very fair point when she says that white working class families and those peoples are being left behind. But unfortunately, her actions as Education Secretary don't align with what I believe are these completely hollow words. So, for instance, we've seen white working class boys particularly, but now girls, falling behind in education for absolutely years. So why Bridget Phillipson would then bring in a policy that is seeing, by the latest figures, 13,000 private school pupils entering the state school system, why on earth she would bring in that kind of policy, whilst then having the audacity to say that she's worried about white working class pupils not doing so well, is beyond me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script. You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week. Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 27 minutes past 1.
Donald Trump is due to arrive in Scotland for a 4-day trip, his first visit to the UK since his re-election. As soon as he's there, we'll be live in Washington.
But in the meantime, a record number of farms were forced to close for good this year as Rachel Reeves' tax raid made the future of thousands of rural businesses unviable.
Statistics from the Office for National Statistics found that a total of 6,365 agriculture, forestry and fishing businesses have closed over the past year.
It's astonishing, the scale of this, really. But let's speak to the president of the Countryland and Business Association, Victoria Vivian. Victoria, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Is this all attributable to the raid on inheritance tax, or is there more going on here?
I think we have to look at what we do know. These are broad strokes, aren't they? There are 6,000, as you said, 6,365 businesses that have closed. We don't have the specifics about why they've closed, but they have all closed since this government came to power, and more than 50% of them have closed since the budget of last October. So I suppose we're asking ourselves, is this just a correlation that we shouldn't concentrate on very hard, or is this a canary in the mine? Is this a sign of things to come?
Obviously, this is terrible news for British farmers, for British businesses and for the families who run those farms. But also, there are wider impacts for the rest of the UK, aren't there? Because it is good, fundamentally, to grow and produce our own food. When we import food from elsewhere in the UK, from elsewhere in the world, we're very open to problems with supply chains. We're open to tariffs being imposed, etc. What could the effect be further down the line on the country as a whole?
Well, I think it's a very interesting starting point, isn't it? I see our members each and every week, so probably more than the Treasury. I actually talk to people for whom this has been a terrible and kind of frightening year, really. DEFRA is not at fault in this. DEFRA recognises that we have a crucial partnership between government and farming to produce food and to protect the environment. This is something that has come from the Treasury, not from our own kind of department. And
There is a concern, though, Victoria. There is a concern that if you look at the ministers in the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, I mean, you've got the MP for Cambridge, which is not a particularly rural seat. He's the farming minister. And then you've got the MP for Croydon in London as the agriculture minister, as the Secretary of State. I mean, do these people actually understand rural life?
My experience is that they do their best to understand. I think the pressures that are coming onto farming and onto agricultural businesses are coming from a very broad economic perspective in this respect that you're talking about. We've had tax changes, we've had national insurance contributions increases. It's piling on the pressure, and people at some point, or possibly their banks, say, we've had enough. What are we doing this for when there is so little appreciation of what we're providing, which is food security and the reinstitution, really, of a great environment for the British people.
Well, thank you very much. That was Victoria Vivian there from the Land and Business Association. Obviously, we've been covering this story at GB News a lot, and this is exactly what we feared was going to happen after the October budget. And it seems, putting two and two together, that it is happening.
Yeah, no, real shame. Of course, there's much more to come on today's programme. We're going to dive back to live in Maryland there. Donald Trump still yet to appear on Air Force One. He's a little bit late, a little bit later than we were expecting, but we're going to be keeping popping backwards and forwards to see at what point the President of the United States chooses to dawdle over in his own leisurely time. But I suppose when you're the leader of the free world...
You can do what you like.
You can set your own time for the plane leaving. You're not rushing for the gate, are you?
Not like British families going on holiday this weekend.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and plenty more to come.
Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly. Will the UK follow suit?
But after the break, MPs have called for a debate on a so-called wealth tax ahead of the autumn budget amid surging borrowing costs. All of that to come after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 1:32. Resident doctors have begun their 5-day strike over pay. That's despite Sir Keir Starmer's last-ditch appeal saying the walkout will put patients and the NHS at risk. US President Donald Trump is setting off for Scotland imminently as he visits the country to open a new golf course and meet with Sir Keir Starmer. First Minister John Swinney said Scotland will have a platform to make its voice heard during the visit. 19-year-old Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife last summer, sparking a huge search, died by accident after falling from a height, a coroner has concluded. There are reports that Israel will allow foreign countries to parachute aid into Gaza today. That's as pressure mounts on Sir Keir Starmer to immediately recognise Palestine as a state, amid growing calls from MPs and a commitment from France. He's called the suffering and starvation there unspeakable and indefensible. Jeremy Corbyn has attended a mega picket in support of the Birmingham bin strikes after launching his new political party yesterday. Mr Corbyn told Birmingham City Council to get a deal now, settle this dispute now, and pledge yourself to genuine equal pay. Those are the headlines. More news at 2 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now for many, today's going to be a dry, fine and bright day, but towards the northwest, we have a fair amount of cloud and there will be some rain pushing in. That's because there is a front making its way gradually southeastwards. It's not a particularly active front, so it's not bringing a huge amount of rain. Nonetheless, it is going to turn a bit damp across central and eastern parts and also southern parts of Scotland as we go into this afternoon, and a bit more cloud and perhaps a few spots of rain pushing into the far northwest of England, western Wales and maybe the tip of Cornwall. Behind the front towards the northwest, some brighter skies but a scattering of showers. The best of the sunshine will be across more central parts of England. Some sunny spells towards the southeast, and in the south we're looking at highs in the high 20s Celsius, so feeling pretty warm if not hot for some of us here. As we go into this evening, and it's staying fairly cloudy across many parts of Scotland, but there will be some bright or sunny breaks for a few, but also still a few showers, particularly towards the northwest. Similar across parts of Northern Ireland. Across the far south of Scotland, maybe the far north of England, maybe some more persistent rain for a short period of time, and quite cloudy across western Wales and the far southwest of England, and a little bit of rain here. Otherwise, largely dry with some clear skies across central, eastern and southern parts of England. And that's how it's likely to stay through much of the night. The rain's going to continue to break up as it edges just a little bit further south. There will be some clear spells around, but despite the clear spells, because humidity is quite high at the moment, temperatures not dropping a huge amount, most places holding up in the mid-teens Celsius. So a pretty warm night, a little bit muggy for some of us. Then as we go into Saturday, a bit of a showery theme for many of us. Plenty of showers towards the northwest, and a swathe of showers will push their way eastwards across parts of England. The focus of these will be across parts of the East Midlands into Lincolnshire, and also across northern parts of East Anglia, where they could turn heavy and perhaps thundery. Temperatures for many will be down a couple of degrees.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A8 westbound between Port Glasgow and Greenock is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. Approach cautiously. M4 eastbound from Junction 45 Winnisforgan to Junction 44 Lon Lass is closed for maintenance. Diversions are available. M56 westbound in Cheshire West and Chester between Junction 11 and 15 is congested, with up to 1 hour delays. A11 southbound in Norfolk between A47 and A1075 has a lane closure from a collision, causing 30-minute delays. And on the trains, Gatwick Express services are delayed through Haywards Heath. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 1. Now, Donald Trump is due to arrive in Scotland for a 4-day trip to the UK. Well, is it a 5-day trip to the UK, judging by some... I suppose it depends on the time zone. But his first visit to the UK since his re-election, of course, and all ahead of a further big state visit. As soon as we see Donald Trump board Air Force One, we'll take you there live.
But joining us now is GB News reporter Tony Maguire, who is on the scene waiting for Donald Trump. Tony, what kind of reception can Donald Trump expect when he arrives?
Well, that's, a bit of a loaded question. Certainly wherever Donald Trump goes, we can expect protests to be there. Certainly, he is a divisive character. A lot of people, like him for getting things done. A lot of them don't for the way that he goes about it. But certainly here in Scotland, I must say it's really great to start being able to talk about what is happening instead of what will be. Because, in the last few hours, we saw the plane land at Prestwick Airport with the Trump family plane. We also know that there's a sizable police presence now swelling to the entrances, or the two entranceways of the Turnberry Resort, and things like helicopters being up in the air, and just behind the camera off to the side, a growing number of members of the public as well, also here to have a bit of a nosy, as it were, and see kind of what's going on. They're going to have some wait though, because it's still going to be a number of hours before the president's plane touches down, before Air Force One arrives in Scotland. And then of course we're going to see that load of cars and his entourage come up here towards Turnberry and begin his 5-day break. I think it's 5 days, 4 nights, right? If you were booking a holiday like this, certainly that's what it would be. But I think this will be a far cry from a holiday from President Trump. He's going to have some time this weekend, I think, to enjoy the rest and relaxation, hitting the tees at these kind of world-class golf courses. But then it's business on Monday as he meets Keir Starmer and John Swinney at his Turnberry Resort before heading north to open his new course in Aberdeen.
Tony, just very quickly, will the weather hold for the president? How's it looking?
This is Scotland, Tom. That is a crazy question. But no, I mean, I think. Do you know what? Yesterday was glorious. Today got rained on quite a bit. Who knows? But you know, that's the thing. If you love the game of golf that much as President Trump does, then you can bet he's going to be prepared for all weathers.
Well, thank you very much, Tony Maguire. Unpredictable weather and unpredictable president. We could have a treat in store. Now, MPs have called for a debate on a so-called wealth tax ahead of the autumn budget amid surging borrowing costs.
Yes, 26 MPs have declared in favour of this, saying that a wealth tax could raise an estimated £24 billion a year.
Cabinet ministers have played down the chance of a wealth tax being implemented, but would this help with high levels of inequality in Britain?
And would it indeed raise the kind of money that they think it would? Well, let's first talk to Christopher Hope, our political editor. You've been speaking to the business secretary, who's committed some news on this.
Yes, he's been the first senior minister to come out attacking these plans for a wealth tax. We spoke to us for our GB News' political podcast, Chopper's political podcast, about the idea. He calls it daft, which is not what the left of the party want to hear. Have a listen to what he had to say.
This Labour government has increased taxes on wealth as opposed to income. You know, there are taxes on private jets, private schools, changes to inheritance tax, capital gains tax. But the idea there's a magic wealth tax, some sort of levy, that doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Switzerland has a levy, but they don't have capital gains or inheritance tax. There's no kind of magic. We're not going to do anything daft like that. And I say to people, be serious about this. The idea you can just levy everyone. What if your wealth, Chopper, was not in your bank account? What was in fine wine or art? How am I going to... How would we tax that? This is why this doesn't exist. And there's a lot of populism out about this. I'm frustrated. To me, I see colleagues sometimes say this in Parliament, I say, Come on, get serious.
Jonathan Reynolds there saying, get serious, the Labour left. What he's saying essentially is that this government is taxing private school fees, it's taxing private jets, it's looking at inheritance tax, maybe pensions are next. They are taxing wealth already. And where else can you go with this? Where is the magic bullet for it? And he said, if you've got a fine wine collection, how can the taxman get tax that?
Yeah.
So he says, we're already doing wealth taxes. A straightforward flat wealth tax won't work.
Well, let's turn to Justin Urquhart Stewart, who joins us in the studio. They say £24 billion, these very left-wing Labour MPs, the 24 of them who say that a huge amount of money can be raised by a flat rate of wealth tax each year. Are they right?
No. The term daft, I think, is polite. It's absolutely stupid. If you start doing things like that, you'll encourage what's already been happening with non-doms. They're leaving, going elsewhere. These are the people who are actually paying an awful lot of tax. Who actually pays most of the tax? The answer is the people generally at the top of the tree. They're the people who actually make the contribution for it. So you need to encourage wealth creation. Once you do that, get the economies moving, get the businesses, do the bits we're good at. Setting up small businesses. We'd have set up more businesses than France and Germany almost put together. Get them growing. They will pay tax because they'll employ people and they'll spend money and they get VAT. If you put in a wealth tax, the wealth goes somewhere else.
We've already seen this exodus of billionaires from the UK, and that's just because of the non-dom tax, is that right, that's come in? And so you could really compound that problem with this wealth tax. There are Labour MPs who are pushing for this to go through. It will probably be popular among the Labour membership. There'll be Labour MPs who are scared of losing their seats to the new Jeremy Corbyn-led party. Do you think there's any chance politically that the government ends up having to introduce a wealth tax, even sort of against their better judgment?
I think there'll be enough people turning around saying, look, this is stupid. The more you put tax up, and there's something known as the Laffer curve, which is a typical bell-shaped curve. When it gets to 50% of tax, then actually you'll find those wealthy people spend more effort actually avoiding tax. Below that, actually, they actually earn more. They don't really care so much.
But here's the bonkers thing about it all. The government has implemented higher taxes on cigarettes and higher taxes on sugar because they know that if you tax something, you get less of it. So you punitively tax these things in the hope that fewer people will buy cigarettes. What do they think is going to happen when you tax millionaires and billionaires? You're going to have fewer of them. I suppose one of the best examples that I heard recently was because what they've done is they've just taken the amount of money these people hold, do a simple calculation, we'll tax them this amount, and then we'll get this much money. But that's like saying, 10 million people in this country, let's say, have a moustache. You sport one. yourself, Justin. Magnificent, might I say. If you had a £1,000 moustache tax on those 10 million people, you'd raise £10 billion, would you not? Of course you wouldn't. People would shave their moustaches.
Although, just to play devil's advocate for a second here, this was the argument that was made about the tax on private schools. It was said by Conservatives that if you introduce that tax on private schools, you will see families pulling their children out of private schools and private schools closing down. So far, that hasn't happened. So perhaps this is the same sort of fear-mongering.
I think the question's still out on that one. Some of the schools I've been talking to, actually, they're seeing a drop-off in people inquiring, saying, actually, I don't think we can afford it now. So those people who have got the aspirations to get their children to go to specialist schools, no, they're backing off. No, running an economy actually doesn't have to be that difficult. What you have to do is get the economy moving. Where are the good bits which are... Because there are good bits moving. We're very good on high-tech. Look at the high-tech hubs around the country. You know, Silicon Glen, Fen, Silicon Gorge, apparently that's Bristol. So all sorts of those... And each of those areas have hubs. And those hubs actually then create more businesses. And they get... trouble is, the Americans come and buy them. If we were better at investing in them, actually grow them into something which is more significant. So that's the area where we can see businesses growing. Not making cars, they're all making cars, but that's not the future. The future actually was technology, and we're good at that. You don't have to put government money in. No. Use enterprise investment.
But the Americans have so much private capital, equity investment, all of this, I mean, 80% of business investment comes from non-bank sources in the United States. Yeah. Whereas in the UK, 80% of investment comes from bank sources. What's happened since 2008? We've limited the amount of risk banks can take because of all of this regulation we've placed on the financial sector. So these big banks in the UK, whereas in the early 2000s, they'd maybe take a more risky investment, invest in a high-tech startup. We're not getting that investment now because of this regulation.
There is no shortage of capital or money in this country at all. What you need to do is actually release some of that. The regulation around it has been far too tight. We admit it needed tightening up. Yes, of course it did. But also, the stock exchange...
An overreaction, perhaps.
Oh, good overreaction. Well, we used to have 45 stock exchanges in this country. Most of them were useless, sitting kids in red braces. But we did have 7 that were quite good, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Birmingham. And the point of a stock exchange is raising local money for local business. That's what it's for. We now have a London Stock Exchange owned, not actually, that's a small part of it. And it's actually finding it's not raising capital for British business. They're leaving.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan Urquhart-Stewart there. Now, a Treasury spokesman has said the best way to strengthen public finances is by growing the economy, which is our focus. Changes to tax and spend policy are not the only ways of doing this. We are committed to keeping taxes as low as possible for working people.
Well, much more to come on Good Afternoon Britain. Indeed, we will be finally seeing the President of the United States when he bothers to turn up there at Joint Base Andrews there in Maryland to fly across to Scotland. But in the meantime, are you looking to fly away? Here's the travel weather.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, it's the hottest time of the year over the eastern Mediterranean, but even so, temperatures are going to be 5 to 10 degrees above average through Cyprus and parts of Turkey inland. Temperatures could get into the mid-40s. Not hot, though, across central and western parts of the Med, with quite a few outbreaks of showery rain spreading south across Italy. Largely fine and sunny for Spain and Portugal. Plenty of sunshine in the Canaries, and temperatures also rising in Tenerife into next week, getting into the mid-30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Back in 2015, Thornton and Cleveley's resident Emma Shepherd noticed the grass in her garden wasn't growing. Within months, she had to put down Alfie, one of her beloved dogs who had developed throat cancer. Just weeks later, she developed a lesion on her back, which would later be diagnosed as skin cancer. She knew then that something wasn't right.
I wasn't really aware of the history of the ICI site when I took the property. I did so much investigation. I had the ground tested with my own money. There was high levels of metals in there and some obviously cancerous carcinogenics in there. They actually nicknamed me Erin Brockovich because I was so all over it.
Last year, a joint investigation was launched by the Environment Agency and the local council. That was following the discovery of PFOA, a man-made chemical that potentially causes cancer. Both parties told GB News they are now working together on this matter, whilst the company under investigation for the potential release of the substance had this to say. AGC Chemicals Europe sets the highest standards for itself and takes its commitments to the local community and to the environment extremely seriously. They added that they voluntarily phased out the use of PFOA in the UK by early 2012. Release of the substance was within the permits held by AGC Chemicals Europe at the time and also UK legislation in place at the time. And yet, 2 months ago, residents within a kilometre of the site received this letter from the council, advising them not to consume anything grown in their gardens due to potential PFOA contamination.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 2. Now, from today, the government will force all pornographic websites to institute age checks. These will be checks that scan people's faces via their webcam or indeed ask them to submit credit card details before they can access those websites.
And joining us now is parenting expert and lifestyle journalist Annette Kello. Now, Annette, what do you make of this? I mean, there's a horrible stat that I think it's 1 in 4 children who view pornography are viewing it accidentally online. Obviously, this is what the government is trying to guard against. Is that an issue and is this the right solution?
Yes, it's really interesting because I would say this is sort of a health emergency in the sense that children can do whatever they like online. We know that 8% of children have viewed porn, and I think there's been 89% rise in the last 6 years of online grooming, which is people, you know, pretending to be a child and being on Roblox and things like that, which is really, really scary. I mean, there was a story recently of a young boy who was playing with another young boy, but then he turned up at his house and he was a 35-year-old man. So, you know, this is really scary stuff, and I think it's a really good push in the right direction. But my question is, how will they enforce it?
Yes.
Will it because work? X has said, well, we're going to start by people just taking selfies on their phone. But with AI, with getting somebody to do it
and
for
children
you.
are often so much cleverer than the legislators, so much more techie than the people who are making the laws here. That could be a bit of an issue, couldn't it?
They are very clever. And also, you have to remember, tech is big business. They want children to get involved. I mean, apparently there's 1 million children in the UK that spend 40 hours a week on a tablet.
It's huge, but are we abrogating responsibility of parents here in favour of the... Because the government is saying we're going to ban this all. Teenage boys are going to find a way around it because they're teenage boys. I mean, where do the parents come in?
Absolutely. I mean, you've probably heard me say this before on this show. I blame the parents. But I do think, you know, you see parents, they're taking their phone into the toilet to scroll TikTok. I mean, what's that all about? But I think parents need to really, really look at what their children are doing all the time. I mean, apparently we pick up our phone 150 times a day. So that is something that definitely needs to be addressed.
Parents need to perhaps check themselves as well as their children. Well, Annette Kello, thanks indeed for talking through that with us. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more to come, including the latest on Trump after the weather.
Expect a warm front moving from the kitchen right
through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, this is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There are going to be a fair few showers around tomorrow. Some of them could turn heavy, possibly even thundery, but currently we have a relatively weak front making its way southeastwards across the country. It's bringing a fair bit of cloud in some places, particularly towards the northwest, and also a little bit of rain, but nothing particularly heavy. And in fact, that rain's going to continue to break up and fragment as it makes its way southeastwards. So a little bit damp at times overnight across parts of northern England, across parts of Wales, maybe the far southwest. More cloud here, but nothing particularly heavy rain-wise. Plenty of showers towards the northwest, drier towards the southeast, and some clearer skies here, though temperatures not dropping a huge amount. Humidity is high at the moment, and that's going to keep our temperatures up. Many places staying in the mid, possibly even high teens. So a little bit muggy tonight, could be a little uncomfortable for sleeping for some of us. Looking ahead to tomorrow morning, and a showery start across much of Scotland. Far eastern parts, Aberdeenshire perhaps having a drier, brighter picture, but plenty of showers elsewhere. Also a few showers pushing into parts of Northern Ireland. Still that weak front across some parts of northern England, and that's kind of bringing the focus for some showery rain as we go through the morning. But that focus is going to gradually make its way eastwards as we go through the day, and as it does so, we could see some of those showers pepping up. So across parts of Lincolnshire, the East Midlands, even into parts of northeast Anglia. That's where we have the greatest risk of some heavy showers by the time that we get into the afternoon, maybe even a bit of thunder. Some heavy showers are possible further south as well. Temperatures for many, they're not going to be quite as high as today, but nonetheless we're looking at mid-20s towards the south, high teens, low 20s further north, and so feeling pretty warm if you catch any bright or sunny spells. As we go through later on Saturday night, most of the showers will clear away and die out, so turning dry across much of England and Wales, but some heavier rain perhaps pushing into parts of the far northwest. And then there will be some dry weather to start next week, but a changeable theme looks set to continue.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday the 25th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Olivia Utley. We'll be heading live to America as Donald Trump takes off for Scotland. We will be there for every second, so keep tuned to GB News.
Yes, I'm here in Turnberry, where in just a few hours' time the President of the United States will arrive at one of his Scottish golf resorts for the beginning of a 5-day stay here in Scotland. What will this weekend be? What will be unfolded over this weekend is a matter to be seen.
A Labour cabinet minister has a message for protesters against Donald Trump. Lay off him, he's good for British jobs.
Meanwhile, Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly. Will Britain follow suit?
And a shock poll reveals half of Brits do not believe Islam is compatible with British values, while 4 in 10 think Muslim migrants have a negative impact on the UK.
And here's a strange one for you. One McDonald's branch has set up a quiet working area so people can work from home while tucking in to their Happy Meal. Would you work in a Mackey's? Now, Donald Trump could well be on his way from the White House to joint
Been waiting
base
for a long time now,
Andrews.
but he can do what he wants as President of the US.
It's worth saying he is a little bit later than we were expecting.
Yes, but when we do see him, we can possibly expect to hear some interesting comments. He does have some precedent when it comes to speaking to the world's media just as he boards that plane, getting everyone into a bit of a tiz before he takes off. We'll have to see what he says this time. Let's hope now we've been waiting for so long that we get some big words here.
Absolutely, and I think that lots of people will be expecting that potentially there is some good news for Britain, hopefully, with regard to the trade talks that will take place on Monday.
That trade deal has almost been signed, but the White House is now saying they want to refine it. What exactly does that mean?
Because in Canada, they signed on the dotted line. Trump held up the piece of paper. The paper fell out of the folder. It was supposed to be all sort of signed, sealed and delivered, but perhaps some last-minute renegotiation. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse?
And we've got GB News political editor here, Christopher Hope. What do you think? What do you think this visit has in store for Keir Starmer, the government, and for Britain at large as well?
I think it's positive. I think the idea is that they're guarding against any big political news on Monday when Sir Keir Starmer meets with Donald Trump in Turnberry and also, of course, with the Scottish First Minister, John Swinney. But they're telling us that they want to build on the bones of that deal.
Yeah.
It was actually signed in the G7 meeting in Canada, in the Rocky Mountains. And it's quite limited in scope, so they want to bring it out towards maybe the pharmaceutical sector, which needs... We have a big manufacturing operation here, and we are charged more for our drugs going to America, and also maybe lifting those steel aluminium tariffs.
So this could be good news. Well, let's see what the President himself has to say, but in the meantime, it's your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 3 minutes past 2. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Resident doctors have begun their 5-day strike over pay. That's despite Sir Keir Starmer's last-ditch appeal, saying that the walkout will put patients and the NHS at risk. Thousands of doctors have walked out today, but Health Secretary Wes Streeting said the impact on those requiring treatment will be kept to a minimum. He says he deeply regrets the position we find ourselves in. Patients are being encouraged to keep coming forward for NHS treatment as up to 50,000 resident doctors join the walkout in England and Wales. The Health Secretary said today that the British Medical Association has acted recklessly.
You're doing everything we can to minimise the risk to patients and to minimise the disruption, but I want to be honest with people. What we can't do is eliminate disruption or risk to patients. We know that there have been operations, appointments and procedures already cancelled, and we know that there will be real challenges over the next 5 days. And that is why the Prime Minister and I are so angry on behalf of patients and other NHS staff who are working hard to keep the show on the road that the BMA have taken what is reckless and unnecessary action, forgetting that they've had a 28.9% pay increase from this government, and this government was also willing to go further on improving their working conditions.
Well, shadowed Business and Trade Minister Dame Harriet Baldwin said doctors need to get back around the negotiating table.
Doctors are being very unreasonable here, and I think that it is wrong for them to go on strike. The Health Secretary, who I think is saying all the right things, is offering 5.4% to striking doctors. So it would be good to see them back around the negotiating table on some of the other sort of non-salary related issues. They got a big pay rise last year. 5.4% is probably more than most of your viewers are getting this year.
US President Donald Trump is setting off for Scotland imminently as he visits the country to open a new golf course and meet with Sir Keir Starmer. First Minister John Swinney said Scotland will have a platform to make its voice heard during the visit, adding that the country has an opportunity to respectfully demonstrate the principles of freedom and justice for all, as well as promote Scotland's economic investment potential. A heavy police presence will be on hand throughout the trip, with reportedly 5,000 officers on the streets. Bringing more on the President's visit throughout today on GB News. 19-year-old Jay Slater, who went missing in Tenerife last summer, sparking a huge search, died by accident after falling from a height, a coroner has concluded. The coroner, Dr. James Adderley, says Mr. Slater fell between 20 and 25 metres while trying to descend a ravine. This resulted in a skull trauma from which he would have, quote, died instantly. There was no third party involved, Dr. Adderley said. Earlier, Mr. Slater's mother, Debbie Duncan, told the inquest that her son had had a wonderful life and was a joy to be around. Sir Keir Starmer is facing pressure to immediately recognise Palestine as a state amid growing calls from MPs and a commitment from France. The Prime Minister will hold emergency talks on Gaza with France and Germany today, saying that the suffering and starvation unfolding there is unspeakable and indefensible. There are reports this lunchtime that Israel will start to allow foreign countries to parachute aid into Gaza today. French President Emmanuel Macron confirmed last night that France will recognise Palestinian statehood, making his country the first G7 nation to do so. He said he would formalise the move at the UN General Assembly in September. And the lawyer for a man accused of assaulting a police officer at Manchester Airport has told the jury that he was not looking for a fight. Mohammed Ahmad and his brother Mohammed Amaz face charges of assaulting police officers and a member of the public at the airport last summer. Both men deny the allegations. GB News reporter Sophie Reaper has the latest from Liverpool Crown Court.
Addressing the jury at Liverpool Crown Court this morning, Ms Chloe Gardner of the defence reminded them of the character references they'd heard about her client Mohammed Ahmad, using words like generous, caring and respectful. Then moving on to the incident at the airport between the two brothers and Greater Manchester Police, she raised concerns about unlawful police practice, even going as far as to allege that the PC Marsden, who's the complainant in count 2, in her words, could have killed Mohammed Ahmad with a kick to the head and could have suffocated her client Mohammed Ahmad.
Those are your latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3452 and €1.1474. The price of gold is £2,483.96 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,100 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain.
US President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Scotland for a 5-day visit, his first visit to the UK since his re-election.
Yes, Trump is expected to visit his golf resorts in Turnberry and catch up with the Prime Minister as well. But of course, there will be protests, so let's go to our man on the ground. Lots of organisation already taking place, some advanced trips arriving ahead of the President. He's still yet to take off, but what's the news on the ground, Tony?
Yeah, good afternoon. So, I think about really in the last hour or two, we've seen a real, shift up in the attention to what's been kind of seen here in Turnberry. Now, what we've seen is over in Prestwick Airport in the last few hours, we saw the Trump family plane. The one we saw back in 2013 with Trump right up the side. Not 100% sure yet who has been transported over in that. We believe, though, that will be a big part of the Trump family who are here to enjoy this stay with him, and of course open that all-important new golf course up in Aberdeen next week. Now, what we have seen even here on the ground at the outskirts of Turnberry is we've seen the police helicopters in the air. We've seen people, police officers, head up into the makeshift towers for kind of overwatch, and then a much more tightened security around the two entrances here. It very much feels like, while we're waiting for all systems go on the tarmac in the United States, it's all hands on deck here at Turnberry. And of course, this isn't really just a jolly for the President of the United States. He is going to have a couple of days downtime at Turnberry to enjoy some rounds of golf, but then it's business with Keir Starmer and John Swinney, we understand, on Monday, still here in Ayrshire. A lot of talk about these trade deals, and hopefully they're going to finesse this trade deal. In fact, one of the things that I've not really spoken about yet in the last couple of days that is being floated as perhaps some enticement is that neither of Donald Trump's Scottish golf resorts have ever holded an Open. And now what we're going to see is that there's some politicians here in the UK that are just starting to lean on the Royal and Ancient, who organise the golf tournaments over, obviously, in the home base of St Andrews, to offer President Trump an Open Championship at one of his courses in Scotland in 2028. There's currently a gap in the schedule for that year, and we might see that makes it into the conversation at the other side of the weekend.
OK, well, Tony Maguire, thanks indeed for joining us live there from Turnberry Golf Course.
And our political editor, Christopher Hope, joins us now. So it sounds as though there will be protests in Scotland, but lots of people locally actually quite like Donald Trump. What will this visit mean for the rest of the UK, and what will it mean politically? Because there's a big meeting with Keir Starmer.
Well, it's quite confusing. He's coming here as a private individual. He owns those golf courses in Scotland. But of course, he's also the President of the United States, and we rely so much on the US for our trade, our security. They guarantee our nuclear weapons. We can't fire them without US technology from our submarines. And that's what the government's trying to stress here. That's why Sir Keir Starmer is going up there on Monday to meet with him, have a bilateral meeting before that state visit, of course, in September. We've been speaking to Jonathan Reynolds. He's the business secretary. He says that people who are going to protest, welcome to protest, but don't forget the value of the trade deal agreed by the UK and US. That has saved tens of thousands of jobs in the car sector. Here's what he told Chopper's Political Podcast.
So is the left wrong to demonise Trump? He's landing this weekend. I mean, there will be protests. And whatever you think what he says, I mean, he does battle for his country, doesn't he?
There are things I would profoundly disagree with, but I would respect any legitimate leader of a key ally and partner.
Yeah.
And also, I said to people in Parliament, I've said a few times, look, I've been offered in Parliament all kinds of advice and in the press of how to deal with this relationship. Most of it terrible, to be honest. I mean, you could play it for politics, like the Liberal Democrats in particular, boycott this, don't talk to the Americans, right? That would have cost tens of thousands of jobs. Jaguar Land Rover supports over 44,000 jobs in the UK, right? So when I see people, it's not that I don't understand legitimate grievances. I really understand how when I look at things, I could have that as well. But I want them to understand why I am going to fight for this country's interests, fight to keep people in work, because you can play it for the politics. At the end of the day, that would be tens of thousands of people from backgrounds like mine, people I went to school with, Nissan factory in Sunderland, who would be, out of work. Communities would be really, really damaged.
Jonathan Reynolds there. And he also said, actually, on the podcast, which is now available on all platforms, how much he likes going on GB News. He gets the best feedback from his constituents. They watch it and they like him coming on.
We do have the best viewers over here at GB News, definitely, and I'm glad they're all listening to Chopper's Political Podcast too. So, Chris, it's quite awkward, isn't it? You know, someone like Jonathan Reynolds, he definitely wasn't a Trump fan 5 years ago. He's now sort of backpedaling.
Yeah.
They're all trying to cozy up to the US president. Will Donald Trump fall for that, or might he make some of those classic Donald Trump jibes while he's over here and make life awkward for the Prime Minister?
Donald Trump is both, I think, thin-skinned but also a businessman. He understands that there's a deal to be done here. He likes deals. That's what he's doing all the time with his politics. And that's why he respects maybe Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, the UK's ambassador in Washington. He recognises there's a deal to be done with the UK. Let's go and do it. I think he puts aside the language from the past. And, of course, we have got famously David Lammy said some pretty fruity remarks, didn't he, back in 2018, 2017, which he has now stood back from and trying to put the UK first, which is where they need to be.
There are some really difficult topics, aren't there, for the Prime Minister? The President has said before that there are areas of London which are no-go zones. He's criticised the UK very explicitly for the levels of mass migration over here. He says that it's a warning for America not to go down the same route. If he brings that up on this visit, what could that mean for Keir Starmer?
Yes, I mean, we've got crimes going up. We've got, obviously, in some parts of the country, in some sectors, not across the board. Of course, it's coming down generally. Yes, he'll know, of course, that Nigel Farage has launched his law and order campaign for this 6 weeks. He might recognise that. He might want to have a tilt at Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, who likes having a bit of back and forth between the two. And he recognises the importance of keeping our streets safe. But of course, so does the government. I don't think Keir Starmer will mind about that. It'll allow him to talk about one of his missions, which is keeping us safe.
Immigration specifically, though, that could be quite tricky, especially against
lack
the current
of control.
climate.
I mean, the borders north and south of mainland America are pretty secure now.
Yeah.
Since he's threatened.
I mean, the numbers that were coming across were extraordinary under the previous presidency.
I mean, he threatened to withdraw. Do it.
I mean, it does slightly put into context. I mean, we talk about, you know, a very bad year of Channel crossings is 50,000 people.
Yeah.
The Americans are having millions of people crossing the southern border.
80-90%. Since he threatened to do a trade war with Mexico and Canada, he forced them to the table, forced them to help enforce that border.
Maybe he'll have some advice and tips for Keir Starmer.
Well,
of course, he has also been deporting sort of gangsters and criminals who cross the border to El Salvador, which is somewhere now where Nigel Farage says he'd like to send the worst criminals in Britain.
It wasn't clear if that was a joke or not when we were told that by Nigel Farage on Monday. He kind of said it's an idea, but I mean, I'm not sure how you do that, particularly if you want to send Ian Huntley there, the Soham killer. He's a Brit. Can you really send him to a foreign jail? Probably not. Even with a reformed European Convention on Human Rights, I think that might be a step too far.
Gosh, well, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Christopher Hope, do stay with us. We're still waiting to see whether President Trump makes it to his plane, perhaps an hour late. But for now, we're joined by the US political commentator Joshua Trevino. Joshua, this is a bit of a pleasure trip for the president. He'll be jetting off for part holiday, part meetings, but he does leave behind him in the United States a little bit of consternation, whether it's his battle with the chair of the Fed, whether it's his MAGA base raising questions over Jeffrey Epstein. There's quite a lot going on domestically in the States.
No one will ever accuse President Trump of having very little going on, but I think pulling back the camera a bit and widening the aperture, there's always going to be consternation among certain quarters with President Trump. But the reality is that we're half a year into a 4-year term, and more has been done in this 6 months than most presidents achieve in an entire term, and so we can't lose sight of that. I think the base understands that pretty well. You're going to see the proof in the pudding come the midterms, is my guess, in 2026. But yes, he's coming to Scotland. It is a bit of a sentimental journey. His mother is Scots. She's a MacLeod. And, who can begrudge a man returning to the place of origin, which is a common experience for many Americans.
But this Epstein drama is far from over, isn't it? It looks as though there's going to be perhaps a big court case between Donald Trump and the Washington Post. What is that going to mean for Donald Trump's base? At the moment, you say they're sort of holding firm, but there is no doubt that there is a little bit of fracturing here. How could that play out in the months to come?
I believe you mean the Wall Street Journal,
I did.
correct?
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, no, that's all right. Look, I would point to the president's record in litigation and contestation versus a variety of other major media outlets. he's won all of them, all the big ones, and I don't see any particular reason to doubt that this is going to be the outcome with the Wall Street Journal as well.
And do you think that'll be the end of it as far as the base are concerned? Because they don't seem happy at the moment. They don't like the idea that their man is somehow implicated in these conspiracies. If he did win that legal wrangling with the Wall Street Journal, do you think that would be the end of it and they'd come right back behind him in time for the midterms?
I think the question is begged, though, as to what one is characterizing as the base here. The reality is that the Trump coalition is extremely heterogeneous, extremely broad. There's a variety of elements in it. That's why he's a supermajoritarian president at the moment. And frankly, from a political standpoint, that's going to be what carries him through. There's not going to be an abandonment of the president over this topic or anything else in particular. He said something that I think was very important and I think definitional several weeks ago, several months ago, which is that he is the defining figure of the movement right now. There isn't an alternative in view, nor should there be. So, you know, whatever fluctuations we may see in particular quarters, particularly in very online quarters, is almost certainly not going to show up at the polls in 18 months.
I think we have seen that play out before. Something that's just because it's big on Twitter or X doesn't always mean that it's going to be big in the real world. But just a final point, Joshua, Trump, his sentimental trip to Scotland, his proud Scottish heritage, his love for his mother. Do you think that was perhaps the biggest factor behind Britain being the first country to actually achieve a tariff reduction deal with the United States?
Oh, I think there's no denying but that the United States and the United Kingdom are bound by ties of sentiment and heritage, and that shows up in policy as well it ought. And now, of course, the next phase is to recall the United Kingdom from an American perspective to its own heritage of liberty, from which it has sadly strayed. But we don't think the hour is too late for that.
Yeah, it's strange to see Scotland, the Scottish Enlightenment, that cradle of free speech and open debate, and now people being arrested for tweets or where they happen to stand.
If I may, it is worth noting that the American Revolution itself, whose 250th anniversary we begin to celebrate this year, was characterized as a rebellion of Scots Presbyterians against the regime. And so I would, as Americans, we would welcome a reclamation of that heritage.
The border communities that went to the Appalachians and all the rest of it. No, absolutely fascinating history there. I'm sure we will be doing a lot to cover the 250th anniversary with our new Washington bureau that we're setting up over the next few months.
Yes.
But Joshua Trevino, thanks indeed for joining us, US political commentator.
And this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be heading live to America as Donald Trump takes off for Scotland. We'll be there for every second, so stay tuned in.
But later on, one McDonald's branch has set up a quiet working area so people can work from home or perhaps work from McDonald's while they're tucking into their, what do they sell at McDonald's? I don't know, Big Mac or chicken...
Sound about 85.
Fillet of fish, chicken McNuggets, chicken mayo. Well, would you work in a McDonald's?
After the break, from Mackey's to Macron, the French president has announced that France will recognise Palestinian statehood at the UN General Assembly. How will the UK respond? Will Keir Starmer follow suit?
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past 2, and it's about an hour since we were expecting Donald Trump to board Air Force One and head over to Scotland. But as soon as we see him, we'll be right there.
Do we see a few people perhaps wandering around under that plane? She says optimistically, maybe some activity there.
Well, or no activity as we're looking now. So let's go straight back to us. But we'll keep an eye on that feed.
Now, France is shaking things up, becoming the first G7 country to officially recognise Palestine as a state.
Yes, Emmanuel Macron's big UN announcement is putting major pressure on the United Kingdom. So the big pressure now, the big question, will Britain follow suit?
Joining us now is research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, Andrew Fox. Now, a number of MPs have signed a cross-party letter to Keir Starmer asking him to follow suit. There'll be certainly lots of MPs in the Labour Party pushing for that to happen. What should he do?
Well, I personally think he should not reward the attackers of 7th of October and the Palestinian Authority, who have a pay-for-slay policy where they financially reward those people who murder Jews in the streets. I don't think we should be rewarding them with a state and state recognition, quite frankly.
It is, of course, the policy of the United Kingdom government that there should be a two-state solution. I suppose the natural question to ask then, if that is the British foreign policy, as it has been for a long time, at what point should the second state be recognised? Policy as it stands, at some point during the negotiations to bring that side to the table. But I suppose there are people who say that it's actually now no longer that side that needs to be brought to the table. These two sides have got further and further apart over the course of the last 2 years. And I suppose you sort of referenced it in your previous point. Is a two-state solution even now sort of on the cards, on the table?
No, well, right now I would suggest that we're further away from a two-state solution than we've ever been in the last 30 or 40 years. It's also worth remembering that the Palestinians have been offered their own state on 6 occasions and they've turned it down every time. Because at the moment, and what hasn't changed at all, is their ambition is from the river to the sea, i.e. the eradication of the state of Israel. So it's a one-state solution that they are keen on. Yeah, please go on.
Oh, sorry, just politically for Keir Starmer here. He will presumably be worried about Labour Party members on the left of the party deserting the Labour Party for Jeremy Corbyn's party. Do you think that could push him into moving on this Palestinian statehood issue? Could that bring some of that left who've deserting the Labour Party in recent months back into the fold?
And here we see the crossover between domestic and international politics, don't we? So, I think actually the decision both in France and here won't really be driven by what's best for Palestinians or what is best for Israelis. It's driven by domestic political concerns, both internal party divisions within Labour, as you point out, but also, of course, the burgeoning Muslim populations in both France and the UK who've been heavily radicalised by what's happened in Gaza over the last 2 years. and who would naturally have been Labour voters and are now deserting them for either independent candidates or more pro-Gaza parties. And so this balance between international and domestic is playing out in real time.
I suppose the tragedy is that before Hamas had a whiff of government power, before the settlements expanded as they have over the past 25 years, back at the Camp David negotiations with Bill Clinton, Yasser Arafat and the Israelis and all the rest of it, I mean, there was an offer on the table there that the Palestinians could have taken. And it would have been a two-state... Not every side would have got everything that they would have wanted. But if both sides had signed up to that deal in the year 2000, what a different world, perhaps, we would live in today.
Absolutely. And, you know, Palestine was offered 94% of the West Bank with a compensatory 6% of territory in Israel to make up the 100%. And Arafat, as you say, walked away. And it goes back to my point that actually it's because Palestinians aren't interested in a two-state solution. They're interested in the eradication of Israel. And until we can find a way to bridge that gap, and there are suggestions on the table, so creating micro emirates, almost using towns in the West Bank who are happy to acknowledge Israel's existence and happy to join the Abraham Accords and you know, growing that domestic peace through economic prosperity and bringing other parts of the West Bank along with them and eventually reaching a Palestinian state that looks a bit like the UAE. You know, that's an option that's been floated. But right now, as we stand, it doesn't matter whether the UK or France acknowledge a state of Palestine because it just isn't going to happen in any time in the near future.
On those options, I mean, do any of them look realistic at all? Is anything that's being suggested, anything that Hamas might even take a vague interest in?
Look, Hamas, I think, are not part of this conversation. They are never going to agree to a two-state solution. They're absolutely explicit on what their aims are, and we saw that played out in real time on 7th of October. And also, I think it would be deeply unrealistic and unfair to expect Israel to negotiate a two-state solution while Hamas are a player in that conversation.
Yeah. OK, well, Andrew Fox, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks so much for joining us, Research Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. We're going to jump straight to Maryland now, where we can see Marine One with Donald Trump on board there, on one of those two helicopters, always flying in tandem, as we were saying a little bit earlier. So one of those two helicopters is the Marine One official call sign helicopter that is carrying the President of the United States. This, the traditional journey from the South Lawn of the White House, a short hop over the Potomac River to take you to Joint Base Andrews, where Air Force One, or at least that's what it is called once the President is on board, is always kept. There are a number of planes that look almost identical, but here we can see Marine One, the call sign of the helicopter that carries the President of the United States, coming to touchdown here at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, which of course is just a short flight from Washington, D.C. Here, the helicopter touching down relatively smoothly ahead of what the President will, I'm sure, hope be a smooth visit of 4 nights and 5 days to Scotland, his ancestral familial homeland. Of course, his mother, Mary, did come from Scotland. That's where he gets his name from as well, Donald, a traditional Scottish name. But there, the Marine One helicopter carrying the President of the United States.
And we've got the chopper landing here and chopper landing over here as well. Christopher, I hope we've got you back in the studio now. So we're going to see Donald Trump in a minute. Do we think he's going to say anything to reporters there on the ground before he takes off?
We just don't know. He might say what he wants to do. He'll be thinking about that. On Marine One now, he's thinking, you know, he knows anything he says is calibrated to set hairs running wherever he's going. Does he want to try and set up this visit, talk about maybe wind farms, talk about maybe expanding that bare bones trade deal agreed, of course, recently?
Well, clearly there's some security issues there. Generally, what happens with these feeds is they cut them and they play them again for security reasons. So we'll get back pictures of Joint Base Andrews as soon as we can. But I believe we can go straight back there now.
There we are.
It's funny, isn't it, Chris? Because I spent definitely, and you, Tom, too, lots of time outside Downing Street waiting for British politicians who shout a question at them. They will never say anything. But Donald Trump is a completely different kettle of fish, and we sometimes have the spiciest comments at the most unexpected of times.
He's a total showman. So when you're in the room with him, you just just have to look at him, man. He's funny, he moves funnily, he says funny things, he says amusing remarks. I mean, he's a TV personality. He draws the attention, and that's why I think he's just interesting to be around. I mean, he's not everyone's cup of tea. People don't like him because of the remarks he's made in the past about women and many areas of public life. But equally, he's very important as the President of the United States of this country, and that's why we give him the respect he needs.
Are Brits sort of warming to him a little bit, do you think? I remember during the last Trump presidency, there was real outrage, huge upset, and it was pretty universal. Now, there are certainly people who get very, very angry about Donald Trump, but it doesn't seem to be quite so widespread. I don't know how the opinion polls are looking at the moment. Can you tell us a bit more?
I haven't seen a poll recently about Trump. I mean, I think that we're kind of slow to react to his kind of politics. We're seeing more of it, aren't we, with Reform UK, saying it's OK to say things that you may find particularly difficult or anti-woke. We're just seeing him. I think we're seeing him emerge now, Tom.
Yes, we are. The steps leading up to Marine One have come down. You've got a number of members of the US Armed Forces there waiting to receive the president. The second staircase there unfurling from Marine One. We should be able to see the president appear very shortly. Of course, his Secret Service in the dark glasses there getting off ahead of him.
So no red carpet or anything at this point. Let's see what happens when he actually lands in Scotland a little bit later on. And we've got more men in suits, but we're still waiting for the big man. Is he going to be wearing a suit or not? Of course, he's here for an unofficial golfing visit, so perhaps he'll be in his slacks. Still just waiting. Who's coming off?
The other big question is, what colour tie will he wear? Sometimes he does the big, long, trademark red tie. That seems to be the absolute typical Trump look. But he has been known to wear a blue tie too, perhaps when he's rooching across the aisle.
It's a red tie we're hearing in our ear now. So just waiting now for Donald Trump to get off. And
there
here he is emerging onto the tarmac. And he'll be crossing over to Air Force One, will be Air Force One once he boards the plane. Let's see if he's got anything to say now. He's speaking there to someone who's got off the plane with him.
And he's just walking across the tarmac there. A very short journey from where Marine One lands. And, of course, has done the short journey from the White House across there to Maryland, the bordering state to Washington, D.C. And he'll be going up the stairs to Air Force One too. Of course, Donald Trump has been someone who has been a bit wary of staircases, of slopes before, but I'm sure he'll manage it somewhat better than famously Gerald Ford, who fell down the stairs on the way up to Air Force One when he was president in the mid-1970s.
Look at the amount of security that's there with Donald Trump now. We've heard that the Scottish police have said what an enormous feat that are organising the security of this visit is going to be. They compared it to what the Queen's funeral was like, and you can get a sort of sense of that now just from the number of people waiting there on the tar with Donald Trump.
There he is. He's
Bev
waving.
Turner is there. She's on that plane. She is. We might even get pictures of Bev Turner. She is there in Washington, D.C., ready to set up the new US GBNews bureau, which is launching in September, and fantastic access she has got here to the US president.
He's probably greeted Bev on arrival into the
I'm sure she'll be the first
cabin.
person
Morning,
he's
Bev.
seen.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Look at this whole
Just looking at the flight time, it's a 7-hour flight to Scotland. I think that looks like wheels down in the UK is more like 10 p.m. tonight than 7 p.m. So we'll wait and see how long that flight takes. And of course, it is often the case that he'll pop back and say hello to the press pool. They'll be saying what's going on, what are your plans, and we might see clips emerging from that flight. Often it's handheld reporters' phones recording those big moments.
And as Tony Maguire was telling us, there has already been a huge amount of advanced parties landing there in Aberdeen, near Turnberry. We've seen the Trump family plane, the one with the words the Trump written, emblazoned across the dark blue, white and red livery there on the outside of that family-owned plane, taking, we presume, members of Donald Trump's family as well. But there's also been cargo planes that have landed in Scotland, carrying helicopters and cars that the president will use for his journey too. I remember being up there in Scotland for COP26 with Joe Biden when he was the United States president. 100-strong convoy of cars they brought over with them for his brief stay in Scotland, and I'm sure it will be no different for Donald Trump.
Well, we saw
an absolutely enormous logistical effort.
And the same at the G7 in Canada most recently. They have a huge retinue. The doors now closed. The last person to board that plane is, of course, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and shortly he'll be taxiing for takeoff.
And if we all remember back to when Donald Trump left his first term as President of the United States in 2020, or was it 2021 when it was finally he left the White House for the last time, and his personal plane, the one that is now in Scotland, was taking off along a very similar Air Force base. Perhaps it was indeed Joint Base Andrews, as we see now, as My Way, I believe, was playing over the loudspeakers, and through it all, I took the falls. I did it my way.
Poor Rishi Sunak would have loved that.
As that aeroplane just flew into the middle distance, disappearing into the sunset. I mean, he does theatre like no other politician I think I have ever
He uses
reported
the
on.
TV, he uses the audience, the TV. He knows what he's doing.
What is it like, Chris, to be in a room with Donald Trump? Because you were there.
Yeah, well, I've done it twice. Once in September last year at Trump Tower, and the second time in the Oval Office in February. In September last year, I managed to get in. I was standing next to all of these TV reporters, looking along the way, and he came down, he gave a speech, of course, the candidate, but Kamala Harris was ahead in the polls then. She was about to visit the southern border. She gave a speech about the immigration. I looked along at all the reporters, and they're all just bored of him. They're on their phones, just doom-scrolling Twitter. But I looked straight at him. I mean, I was like, captured by the way he's behaving, and just how he's so different to look at. And he looked up and they said, right, I'll take your question, and pointed to me, and we were able to ask him what he thought of Keir Starmer, and he said he's a nice guy. And that number 10 was so thankful for that, because it's the first time he's spoken at all about Keir Starmer publicly since the election.
And that was such an important and big moment, and what has actually developed as a very cordial relationship. A lot of people were expecting perhaps he's going to have a very bad relationship. There are some world leaders who do not get along with Donald Trump, but perhaps this is the reason why there is less protest in the United Kingdom compared to the first visit that Donald Trump came to. We're just hearing Air Force One there revving up as it takes off from Joint Base Andrews, going to be flying that fast route across the Atlantic because of the Gulf Stream. I believe it is faster going from the United States to Britain than the other way. You're flying with the wind rather than against it. But clearly, what Keir Starmer has done is stay close to Donald Trump, not criticise him publicly, be incredibly diplomatic, and perhaps because you have that same attitude towards this president from the official opposition, the Conservative Party, certainly from the Reform Party of Nigel Farage, and from the Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the Labour Party too, or at least the top of the Labour Party. Unlike the last time round when he was president, when you had an opposition that were doing the anti-Trump thing, that were leaning into the anti-Trump attitude, that were organising their own MPs and their own local parties to go out on these protests, because you don't have that top-down instruction from political leadership in the same way, perhaps you have a more muted response from the public in general.
Apart from Ed Davey.
Right.
So there is Ed Davey is saying we shouldn't be doing well. I'm not sure he's fully against this, but certainly we should be giving an arm's length treatment towards Donald Trump. But not everyone listens to the Liberal Democrats, Tom. So the main parties are welcoming him, I think.
Yeah. With Nigel Farage's relationship with Donald Trump, because that was very close, and then it soured a little bit.
We don't know that. Again, that wouldn't come from Nigel Farage. He wasn't in the rotunda, which is because the inauguration was inside because of the weather, and Boris Johnson was there, and we know Nigel Farage wasn't there. So it looked like he was maybe being elbowed out. He would deny that, of course, and it may be not the case. I mean, he certainly is quite close. The team around Donald Trump do like Nigel Farage. They know him, so I think they know he's close. But that relationship. I mean, I don't know. I asked Nigel Farage when he last spoke to Donald Trump, I think in April, and he hadn't spoken to him since he became president in January.
He must be so busy now, and they did talk more when he was not president.
Well, they've both got jobs to do now, big jobs to do.
This is the thing.
So I think, I don't know also whether the UK government is reaching out to Nigel Farage in a kind of soft diplomacy way, because, of course, they're old mates from the old days. Farage has said before he wants to help out the UK government. He's a patriot. He wants to support that connection with America. As things stand, I don't think we're going to see Nigel Farage popping up to Scotland, maybe some involvement on a private level or even a public level at the state visit.
And yet at the RNC, the Republican National Convention, when Nigel Farage did go, he was called out by Donald Trump in the audience, saying Donald Trump congratulating him on his election results and all the rest of it.
That was in November last year,
I suppose it'll be quite interesting to see, Chris, whether there is any conversation, whether Donald Trump mentions Nigel Farage at all, because obviously Nigel Farage sees himself as a Prime Minister in waiting. The polls are very much in Reform's favour. It'll be interesting, won't it, to see if Donald Trump is taking that seriously, because if he is, that could be bad news for Keir Starmer.
It could be. I also think that Donald Trump won't want to embarrass Sir Keir Starmer. He definitely respects him. Their relationship, when I've seen it close quarters, is one of respect between two differently politically aligned individuals, but it's not forced. We saw that with Emmanuel Macron in the Oval Office, grabbing the US president's knee and slapping his back and things, and being a bit too handsy. That is not where Keir Starmer is more reserved. I think he does command the respect of the president in that way.
Now, our cameraman there on Joint Base Andrews is giving us a bit of a behind-the-scenes look, because, of course, there isn't just one Air Force One, as we were discussing earlier. There are lots of planes that look absolutely identical, and the one taking off has just gone in front of some of the others that are parked, that are stationed there. So we're going to cut away, because we do have footage of Donald Trump a little bit earlier today, when he was setting off, walking towards Marine One, I believe. This is what he said to the press at the White House.
Those young people, they just said, too much winning. Too much winning, sir, they know it. And it is a lot of winning. We had the best 6 months ever. We're now heading to Scotland. I'm meeting with the Prime Minister of UK. Some of you are going, I guess, and a lot of you aren't. Are you going? Huh? Well, you got to get moving. That's a good one. That's going to be a good one. So we have great numbers we just announced. I don't have to go over it because you've seen them, but we have great economic numbers. The deal with Japan is amazing. You give us $550 billion, and we have totally open access into Japan. Those numbers are great. I mean, the kids actually just said, very, very cute, actually. I walked up, they said, sir, there's too much winning. They picked up on a little routine, you know. Go ahead.
Mr. President, can I ask you about the DOJ lawsuit that you just filed yesterday against New York City and Mayor Adams? In the lawsuit, they named the CBP officer that was off duty with Scott. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's DOJ going against New York, but we're going against a lot of other places, too. We want to bring safety to our cities, but that's going to be a pretty routine filing with other cities, too. As you know, we've started numerous lawsuits with other cities. We want to bring safety. We've got to get the criminals out, and we're doing it in record numbers.
Sir, up on Gaza in negotiations?
Yeah, Gaza, they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out in terms of negotiating. It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job. They really, they asked for things. Don't forget, we got a lot of hostages out. So now we're down to the final hostages, and they know what happens after you get the final hostages. And basically, because of that, they really didn't want to make a deal. I saw that. So they pulled out, and they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get rid of it.
What are you hoping Todd Blanche gets out of his meetings with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Well, I don't know about the meeting. I know it's taking place, and he's a fantastic man. He's a great attorney, and people should really focus on how well the country's doing, or they should focus on the fact that Barack Hussein Obama led a coup, or they should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about. Because, you know, Jeffrey Epstein should be spoken about, and they should speak about them, because they don't talk about them, they talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
Are you considering Are you considering
Easy.
will you do any business deals with the UK? In
Yeah, I'm going to meet with the Prime Minister right now. We're going to be over there in about 6 hours. We're meeting with the Prime Minister tonight. We're going to be talking about the trade deal that we made and maybe even improve it.
Are you considering clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell? Are you considering clemency for Ghislaine Maxwell, sir?
I saw homeless people sleeping right outside the gates of the White House. Are you concerned about that?
I think it's terrible, and we'll have them removed immediately. We do remove it. We've got to get the mayor to run this city properly. This city has to be run. You know, I have the right to take it over, and I think it's terrible. Where are they? Where did you see them?
Right outside on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Near the Treasury.
Right across the street from Mr. President, have you heard about Todd Blanchard's interview with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Are you still disappointed in President
pardon or clemency for Ghislaine?
Well, I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to say is that Todd is a great attorney, but you ought to be speaking about Larry Summers. You ought to be speaking about some of his friends that are hedge fund guys. They're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
Do you maintain you did not write a letter for Jeffrey Epstein's birthday?
I don't even know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot. All you have to do is take a look at the dossier, the fake dossier. Everything's fake with that administration. Everything's fake with the Democrats. Take a look at what they just found about the dossier. Everything is fake. They're a bunch of sick people. Where did you see the people laying outside?
Right across the street from Lafayette Park, sir, towards 15.
We'll take care of it.
Are you hoping to meet with President Putin for bringing hostages home? What are the alternative methods to bring hostages home?
Well, we got a lot of them out, and it's I've always said those last 10 or 20 are going to be the toughest, because Hamas knows what happens when they don't have any bargaining chips. And they really broke a deal. They broke a deal, and you're going to have to do what you have to do right now. It's a terrible thing. And I always knew that. I said, when you get down to the last one, they're not going to be able to make a deal.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out, sir?
Why has the dollar fallen so much, and are you concerned about that?
Well, you know, I'm a person that likes a strong dollar, but a weak dollar makes you a hell of a lot more money. Hate to tell you, I don't know if you study it, but I study it. And if you look at the yen...
I went to Penn and worked, so I know this.
You understand?
Absolutely.
Oh, you did go to Penn?
I went to work, yes,
well,
sir.
that means you're a smarter guy than I even thought, and I know you're smart. So, when we have a strong dollar, one thing happens. It sounds good. But you don't do any tourism. You can't sell tractors. You can't sell trucks. You can't sell anything. It is good for inflation. That's about it. And we have no inflation. We've wiped out inflation. But it's an interesting question. So I will never say I like a low currency, but you remember the battles I had with the yuan, with China and with Japan, Japan being the yen. They always wanted a weak currency. They're trying to get a weak currency now. Now, it doesn't sound good, but you make a hell of a lot more money with a weaker dollar. Not a weak dollar, but a weaker dollar than you do with a strong dollar. And the first people that are going to notice it are the manufacturers of trucks and various other things. Like, look at Caterpillar, how well they're doing now. When you have a strong dollar, you can't sell anything. It's only good for inflation, and it's good psychologically. It makes you feel good. But with that being said, I love strong dollars, but you make your money with a currency. And I had so many different fights with President Xi, between Japan and China. All they want to do is have a weak currency. They're always fighting for a weak currency. And that's how they really dominated over the years. So when I see it down there, I don't lose sleep over it, let's put it that way. In fact, sometimes I go to sleep very happy. You understand? Do you agree with me?
I agree with a lot of what you said, Mr. President. Do you think it makes it any easier to impose your tariff with that lower dollar? Because
I think it makes it easier even for tariffs, yeah. And it makes the tariffs worth much more. And it's easier to pay off debt. And it's easier to get a low interest rate, too. There are a lot of good things. it's hard to explain to people the headline. Trump wants a weak dollar. It's not a weak dollar. You take a look at the history of China over the last 20 years. All they do is fight for a weak currency. Look at Japan when they were really doing well. They had a very weak currency. So to me, I just say thank you very much. It is what it is.
President, what's your comment on ceasefire? Have you given up on a Gaza ceasefire?
Well, the Gaza situation, and I said this was going to happen when you get down to your last 10 or 20. We got a lot of hostages out. We took them out in numbers that nobody believed, a lot of them. And I said, when you get down to 10 or 20, I don't think Hamas is going to make a deal because that means they have no protection. And basically, that's what happened. Hamas didn't want to make a deal.
Have you seen that photo?
I think what's going to happen is they're going to be hunted down.
Have you seen secondary sanctions sooner on Russia? Are you closer today to secondary sanctions?
We're looking at that whole situation. It could be that we'll have to put secondary sanctions on there.
Sooner than 50 days?
Maybe, yeah.
Do you think it was counterproductive?
Who are you with? Who are you with?
Scripps News.
Oh, good.
Counterproductive to France, for France to say that they would recognize the Palestinian state. Macron said that yesterday.
Look, he's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. You know, it's not going to change it. Well, he made a statement, France, Macron. His statement doesn't carry any weight. He's a very good guy. I like him, but that statement doesn't carry weight.
How close are you to a trade deal with the EU?
I would say that we have a 50-50 chance, maybe less than that, but a 50-50 chance of making a deal with the EU. And it'll be a deal where they have to buy down their tariffs, because they're right now at 30%. And they'll have to buy them down, maybe, or they could leave them the way they are. But they want to make a deal very badly. I would have said we have a 25% chance with Japan, and they kept coming back and we made a deal, and the deal is, don't forget, Japan's putting up $550 billion. It's a lot of money. And also paying tariffs. The biggest part of the Japan deal, and maybe we get this with EU, maybe we don't, is that we have the right to go in and trade. We have the right. They've totally opened Japan to just to the U.S. That's, to me, the biggest part of the deal.
What level of tariff are you looking
Nuclear
for?
disarmament. You said repeatedly you would like to see further nuclear arms reductions between the United States and
I would like
Russia.
to see that.
But the New START treaty is expiring in about 6 months, and it cannot be legally extended.
That's a problem. That's a problem for the world.
Create a new one.
It's a problem for the world. You know, we have restrictions, and they have restrictions, as you know, or nuclear. That's not an agreement you want expiring. We're starting to work on that, but that is a big problem for the world. When you take off nuclear restrictions, that's a big problem for the world.
What level of tariff do you want, Mr. President?
I think that Jerome Powell, I think we had a very good meeting. Forgetting about the building, that's out of control and all that. But I think we had a very good meeting on interest rates. And he said to me, now I don't know if he's going to say this on Thursday or whenever he speaks, but he said to me very strongly, the country is doing well. He said, congratulations, the country is doing really well. And I got that to mean that I think he's going to start recommending lower rates.
Because of that conversation?
How do you think that the Supreme
The country really is doing well.
Mr. President, how do you think that
record business?
Did you speak to Netanyahu?
Thank you, Mr. President. How do you think that the Supreme Court's ruling that benefited you on presidential immunity would apply to former President Barack Obama and what you're accusing him of doing?
It probably helps him a lot. Probably helps him a lot, the immunity ruling. But it doesn't help the people around him at all. But it probably helps him a lot. He's done criminal acts, there's no question about it. But he has immunity, and it probably helps him a lot.
A trade agreement you're looking to sign to.
He owes me big. Obama owes me big.
What are the details in the UK trade agreement you're hoping to find soon with the Prime Minister?
This week we want to talk about certain aspects which is going to be good for both countries. More fine-tuning. And also, we're going to do a little celebrating together because, you know, we got along very well. UK's been trying to make a deal with us for like 12 years and haven't been able to do it. We got it done. He's doing a very good job, good prime minister, good guy. We really get along very well. So we're going to see, we're going to meet at Turnberry and we're going to meet at Aberdeen. So two beautiful places.
Is there wiggle room in steel and aluminum if they were to budge on digital services tax?
Say it.
Is there any wiggle room on steel and aluminum in exchange for any budge on digital services tax?
Not a lot, because if I do it for one, I have to do it for all. So on that, steel and aluminum, not a lot.
President, did you speak to Netanyahu about aid drops?
Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Mr. President, did you speak to Netanyahu about allowing aid drops in Gaza from Arab countries?
Yeah, I speak to him, but I can't tell you what I spoke to him about. But it was sort of disappointing, although I told you. I mean, I told you, when you get down to those last 20 hostages, you get down to that last 10 or 20, it's going to be very hard for Hamas to make a deal because they lose their shield, they lose their cover. We got a lot of them out, a lot of them. We took a lot of bodies out, too. You know, so many of the parents said, please get my son's body back. And we're able to do that. We got a lot of people out, live and people that are not alive. But it was very important to the parents to get their son back, even though they knew their son was dead.
Are you going to be able to get the Open Championship back to Turnberry?
I think they will do that, yeah. They want, Turnberry is rated the #1 course in the world. I think they'll do that, yeah.
And are you going to talk to anybody
No,
about
I'm not
that?
going to. It's not about that. I'm going to see it for the first time in years. You were there the last time we went. That's pretty good, right? No, it's the best resort in the world, I think, at Turnberry, and it's one of the greatest courses in the world. We're going to see it. We're going to have, I believe, dinner at Turnberry with the Prime Minister. Then we're going to go to the oil capital of Europe, which is Aberdeen, and we're going to have lunches there. We're going to have a good time. I think the Prime Minister and I get along very well.
And you're going to see the Scottish leader, too, right? Swinney, Josh Swinney.
I am.
What's that about?
Well, we have a lot of things in Scotland. I have a lot of love. My brother was born in Scotland, and he's a good man. The Scottish leader's a good man, so I look forward to meeting him. That's all set up, right?
Paris Day is exactly 1 week from today, August the 1st. What do you expect between now and next Friday as it relates to your deadline?
When you say tariff, not Paris.
Paris.
Paris. I think you said Paris Day.
No, Paris Day.
Well, most of the deals are finished right now. They're finished because we're just going to charge a certain tariff. A lower tariff that I could get. I don't want to hurt country. But we're going to send a letter out sometime during the week. And it's basically going to say you're going to pay 10%, you're going to pay 15%, you're going to pay maybe less. I don't know. But Australia was great. They opened up beef yesterday for the first time ever. And they did it. We didn't know about it. We asked them to do it, and all of a sudden we got a word that they wanted. So obviously they're looking to do something. But Australia. So August 1st is going to come, and we will have most of our deals finished, if not all. We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China, but we haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it.
When you send out those letters, do you believe that will bring some certainty to the financial markets? Because then they will know.
No, when those letters go out, they're a page and a half. That means they have a deal. It's done. They pay that tariff, and that is a contract essentially. And they can come into the country. They're going to pay a tariff. I'm going to keep it minimal. I'm going to keep it. I'm not looking to hurt countries. I could do that too, but I'm not looking to do that. But when that letter goes out, that's a deal. And we'll be sending maybe close to 200 of those letters out. Don't forget, we have a lot of countries. So we're going to be sending out almost 200 of those letters. But once those letters go out, there we have a deal. Now, we sent one to Japan, we sent one to EU, and they came back and negotiated a deal. I think the EU is got a pretty good chance of making a deal.
With all of that revenue coming in, Mr. President,
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
Our country was a dead country. It was a dead country 1 year ago. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And don't you feel it?
Mr. President, with all of that revenue coming in tens and tens of billions of dollars, do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice. Being blocked by a lot of people. People don't know this, and we didn't certainly get any acknowledgement or thank you, but we contributed $60 million to food and supplies and everything else.